hospital at this time. A solidarity rosary is being held at the Grotto in Strabane this evening to remember the 3 people who lost their lives and those injured. West Tyrone MLA Daniel McCrossan says the local community is devastated by the tragedy.
People locally are struggling with this and coming to terms with it, are in a deep sense of shock, and the local families are trying to cope with the devastating news of the profound loss of their loved ones, and all of us in this community today feel it. You know, the Strabane community is very tight-knit, it's very well connected, everybody knows everybody.
A man arrested in connection with the investigation into the attendance of a GSOC investigator at a party celebrating Jerry Hutch's acquittal of murder has been released without charge. The man in his 60s was arrested yesterday by detectives from the National Bureau of Criminal Investigation on suspicion of disclosing information. Gardaí say investigations are ongoing and a file is being prepared for the DPP. The Donegal-based Road Safety Organisation Park is urging the Road Safety Authority to address the issue of having driving disqualifications in Great Britain and Northern Ireland recognised in the Republic. There's mutual recognition of driving bans between the 2 jurisdictions, meaning the imposition of a ban on one side of the border will lead to the imposition of a ban by the courts on the other side. However, there can be long delays in the process. Figures released to Park recently show that so far this year there have been 40 cases before the courts. Of those, 5 have been affirmed, 24 have proceedings still underway, and in 8 cases the disqualification expired before the proceedings ended. Park founder Susan Gray says this raises serious questions.
The RSA is drip feeding information. We need to know how long some of these cases are ongoing. They say in the reply that some of them have been referred to RSA prior to 2023, and we know there's an expiry date on these disqualifications. Only 5 out of the 40 have been affirmed so far. These are drivers that will be disqualified for serious offences like drink driving or driving while disqualified or dangerous driving.
Weather now, it will be increasingly sunny today with some scattered showers, highest temperatures of 14 or 15 degrees. That's all from Highland Radio News for now. We'll be back with news again at 10 o'clock. Until then, good morning.
Life is full of tough choices, from what we'll have for dinner to finding better ways to save. From asking yourself, do I really want to spend the rest of my life with Brian? To deciding where to get a coffee. So why not make an easy choice and choose Eurospar? With trolley loads of value, sustainable choices and friendly service, it's always easy to shop at Eurospar. Your super easy supermarket. Unfortunately, we can't help with Brian.
The county's #1 talk show, The 9 till Noon Show on Highland Radio. And now, it's time for the talk of the Northwest, The 9 to Noon Show with Greg Hughes on Highland Radio.
Hello, good morning. It's 4 minutes past 9 on this Friday, the 28th of April 2023, and you're very welcome along to the 9 till Noon Show. We have our Friday panel joining us shortly. A little later on, Michael and Fanula will be in talking all things entertainment and lots more besides. We want you involved in our conversations. WhatsApps and text to 086 60 25000, 086 60 25000, or give us a call on 07491 25000, and emails to comments@highlandradio.com. We'll be going to our Friday panel very shortly, but first, as you heard in the news there, the people who have very sadly died in a crash near Auchnacloy in Tyrone have been named locally as Dan McCain, his sister Christine Duffy and their aunt Julia McSorley. They were killed on the A5 Tullyvar Road when their minibus collided with the lorry. 4 others in the minibus were seriously injured and taken to hospital. Father Declan Boland is the Strabane parish priest, and he joins us on the programme. Thanks for taking the call on the most difficult of mornings, Father.
Very much so, Greg. Our hearts are broken today. This unspeakable tragedy has hit us totally without any notification, whatever. We're deeply saddened, and we're trying to comprehend the enormity of what has happened. As the news broke yesterday, the extent of it, a brother and a sister and an aunt, a lovely, lovely family, the McCain family, travelling back from Corby in England, where they had been attending the funeral of an aunt, to be taken out so tragically It's really difficult to come to terms with the dimensions of this loss, Greg, this morning. And the whole community of Strabane is mourning, and Newton Stewart too, because Julia, the aunt, even though she was from Strabane originally, she lived there. So there are three communities, our parish here, Melmount, and Newton Stewart.
Yeah, and I think there might be also family across the border here in Donegal. And how does anyone process this type of information, Father? Because you have family who are hearing of this awful loss and at the same time hoping that others make full and speedy recoveries. It's just too much sometimes for the mind to comprehend, isn't it?
And indeed, Greg, when you have a multiple tragedy like this, you're at any tragedy, you're totally at sea. But when there's a multiple tragedy like this involving the same family, words just lose you. You're lost for words. Words are inadequate. Yesterday, in Christine Duffy's home, people were just gathering. There was a silent solidarity, groups meeting, people hugging, lots of tears, lots of prayers, people bringing refreshments, people just standing there in solidarity, not having the words, but their very presence brought a great sense of support to the family as they try to unravel these events. And thankfully, two of the siblings who were badly injured, they're now in post-operative care in the RVH, and they're expected to come through. And another sibling, William, and his wife Anne-Marie, they were discharged from hospital yesterday. So in the midst of all the tragedy, at least we have the news that the others are going to be okay.
Like most areas, this area, it's not the first tragedy that has visited and that has to be dealt with. And the one thing we know is the community will come together, and as impossible as it seems right now, will come together and rally around and support one another and come through this.
You can say that 1,000%. This family come from an area in Strabane, which is called the head of the town. It's a close-knit community. They're a loving community. They're extremely supportive. And they have already started to show that solidarity, Greg. And I know in the difficult and trying days ahead, they will be there for this family. And this unspeakable tragedy, they will help the family through this. I know the faith of the people will see them through, but it will not prevent us from having to face into the horror of the bodies coming home and the funeral services, etc. But we will get there. And this evening in Strabane, we're having a rosary at the grotto. There's a grotto very close to where the family live, and the local people are asked to gather there. And funny that the last time we gathered there, Greg, was for the Christloch victims. The victims of Christloch, and we've had other individual tragedies where we gathered there as well.
And similar to that, Father, this is one of those tragedies that even if people aren't directly affected, the ripples pass through a community. And I think an opportunity like that's being presented tonight might give those listening to this news and struggling with it an opportunity to get with others, because there is comfort in that.
Absolutely. This is a time when words and sentiments and the usual things we say when somebody dies or when there's a tragedy, somehow these things are ring hollow. And just to see people gathering and to witness people gathering, and that sense of communal grieving at a deep level, unspoken, is very, very powerful. It's a wonderful witness. And can I say this morning as well, I was on Radio Ulster this morning, and the parish priest of Auchnacloy was on. Can I thank the people of Auchnacloy and the parish priest? They're having a mass there tonight and candlelight vigil. Can I thank the first responders and the people of Auchnacloy for showing such care to our beloved family, the McCain family, who were visited by this unspeakable tragedy and this unspeakable grief, Greg. I want to publicly acknowledge that this morning.
And listen, Everett, with so many people, the first responders, as you mentioned, the families, the friends, all affected by this, and you yourself as well, Father, have to show great strength at a time like this. So we offer you all our thoughts and prayers and whatever strength can be mustered to try and get through the next couple of days and the long road ahead, because I recognise that the likes of yourself and the police and ambulance services, this impacts so many different people. Father, thank you for your time.
And thank you for those sentiments, Greg. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Father Declan Boland there, who's the Strabane parish priest. We'll be back introducing our Friday panel after this short break.
Brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, offering low-rate car loans with fast approval. Apply online at letterkennycu.ie or in office today.
Get the Irish Daily Star today for your free 12-page Punchestown Festival pullout with all the top tipsters in our stable ready to get you first past the post all week. The Irish Daily Star, number one for racing, number one for you.
It's the Right Price Tiles and Wood Flooring biggest ever sale. Up to 50% off everything in store. All tiles, all wood flooring, all outdoor slabs, cladding and bathware. Everything slashed in price. This sale is not to be missed. Right Price Tiles and Wood Flooring biggest ever half-price sale ends Sunday.
By choosing Donegal Creameries milk, you're supporting over 200 dairy farming families across Donegal in doing what they do best, producing delicious, fresh milk every day. For over 100 years, Donegal Creameries milk has been brought to you daily from our dairy at Crossroads, Killygordon, the longest established creamery in the region. Support local farms, local families and local jobs by choosing Donegal Creameries milk.
Highland Radio time checks with Expressway. Travel route 32 from Letterkenny to Dublin. Expressway, bringing you the time at...
Okay, you're very welcome back to the programme. And the time is 13 minutes past 9. Our guests on the Friday panel this morning are Emma De Souza, writer, campaigner, peace builder, founder and founder of the Civic Initiative, and Paddy Rooney, PRO of the Friends of Letterkenny University Hospital. Good morning to Emma. Obviously, I wanted to sort of try and separate that awful tragedy out from our conversation, but not do so in such a way where we couldn't just reflect on it. It wouldn't be fair on either you or Paddy, Emma. But I mean, it's just, as I said to Father Boland there, it's unimaginable, isn't it? It really is.
Yeah, it's such an imaginable trauma and loss to have happened, and it's not too far up the road from myself, Auchnacloy. I'm out near 5 Mile Town, and it really is impacting right across the community. It's very hard to process in terms of how the community and the family now recover from such a loss. So it's definitely a difficult time.
Yeah, and Paddy, you know, mentioned to Father Boland there about the importance of community, and Strabane certainly not wanting in that regard. It's going to be a tough couple of days, weeks, months, and years ahead. Just an awful thing to be visited on a family and community.
I expect that it will, Greg, because of the suddenness and I suppose the age of the people that were involved. I mean, in my own extended family, we had, 2 funerals within the last 10 days. My mother-in-law was coming to the end of life, but my sister-in-law was not, and she died very suddenly. And the outpouring of grief for the elderly member of the family was one thing, but it was brought up at much higher level for my sister-in-law. So I can only imagine for the community, the triple loss, it's absolutely terrible. And I think that the family themselves will be relying on the community for support and help over the coming days in particular, because time will heal all this tragedy, Greg, such as it is,
Okay, and condolences to you and the family, Paddy, on what you've been going through.
That's right.
Let's get to some of the stories then that have been making the headlines. It's kind of ironic us talking about this, because yesterday we were talking about distraction politics, and maybe this just feeds into the wider conversation. But as we know now, Minister of State in the Republic for Skills and Further Education, Niall Collins, he said he had no doubt that his actions in relation to the sale of land in County Limerick in 2008 were legally correct. He was giving a personal explanation in the Dáil after it was revealed his wife purchased land from Limerick County Council in 2008 after he attended a meeting of a local area committee where the sale was proposed. Mr. Collins said the process was all done in full transparency and that the sale occurred when he was no longer a member of the council. There are some questions, though, that remain. The key one being, I think anyway, was he aware when he participated in that meeting that agreed to put the land up for sale that his wife had expressed an interest in buying it? Because obviously you'd expect him to recuse himself at that point. There's also two versions of the one council document relating to the decision now circulating. One which refers to buyers with a second name redacted, and another with which just has Niall Collins' wife's name on it. Okay, so how big a story is this? Or are we looking over here when we should be looking over there, in your view, Paddy?
Well, am I right in saying, Greg, that the origin of this story came from the Ditch magazine?
Yeah, it's an online publication on the Ditch,
An online publication, yeah. And, they seem to be very successful or active recently in digging up this, because this story goes back some time. I suppose the thing, is it a distraction? Well, Dominic Raab, the Foreign Secretary in Britain, had to resign recently over a report into his behaviour with civil servants that he was deemed to be bullying them or whatever. And I'm not trying to sort of weigh one against the other, but Paul Murphy, the People Before Profit TD, was on RT this morning and he was quoting legislation now in relation to, or the rule book in relation to public reps at local and national level about what constitutes a conflict of interest and what they can and can't do. And he was able to match the behaviour of Niall Collins. And I'm talking about the meetings that he was at and what he had said and the meetings that he had recused himself from. And it seems that he did cross the line, even though the government, all voices coming from the government are adamant that he didn't break any law. And he's constantly saying that, I didn't break any law, I didn't break any law. Well, Paul Murphy is making the case that he actually did. And the other thing is, I suppose the commentary around this, Greg, is the fact that if you look at what happened or how Niall Collins has been protected in inverted commas by the government at the moment, and you compare that with how Barry Cowan was dealt with, he was sent on his way very, very swiftly, but the wagon seems to be circled around Niall Collins to make sure that he stays. Is that solely because the voting numbers in the Dáil now are much tighter than they were at the outset of the government, or is it something else? But it is a feature. There is some degree of shabbiness about this, the fact that people who find themselves elected to power and then that they use that power. I'm not saying that this happened in this case.
But not answering questions either. You see, sometimes I think politicians can be their own worst enemy, because we heard Leo Varadkar saying, look, if he answers questions, we can't have the Dáil being a kangaroo court. But many of them, people have answered questions in the past. Pascal Donoghue in the not-so-distant past. And there's two very obvious questions. Like, was his wife the only person that had actually expressed an interest in this land beforehand, and did he know? Whose other name is on this council document? Questions that can only be answered if he allows himself to be questioned on it. And then what I really can't understand is that all three leaders of the government parties are allowing themselves to be dragged into this. So as toxic as it might get now, they've got no distance between themselves and this controversy. I don't buy the numbers thing, because I imagine there's at least one or two TDs out there that would come back into the fold if Fine Gael needed them to do so, because I think there's a couple of loyal ones there. So I don't understand why they're handling it in the way that they are.
Well, I don't for the life of me understand either why they're taking the approach that they are, because there must be tons and tons of PR people around Niall Collins advising them what to do and what to say. Robert Troy, the TD from Longford, Westmeath, or whatever, he was in the very same predicament back, was it last year? And he adopted the same approach as Niall Collins did. You know what happened to him? Eventually, the storm got so severe, Greg, that he actually had to resign. The only reason I think that Niall Collins won't go into Dáil Éireann and to answer questions is because he has something to hide. If he had nothing to hide, what would be the problem? And he would nip this in the bud. This is going to drag on and drag on and drag on, and it'll probably build up in a crescendo fashion into something that could blow up in his face.
Emma D'Souza, you can talk obviously to the actual story itself, but the big loser here is politics, because it's just another reminder to the public of what goes on, or what we don't know goes on, or the what's being covered up, what's not being covered up. I mean, it just reflects really, really poorly on the whole system.
Yeah, and I mean, I would add that I found it particularly galling when parliamentary privilege was used, actually sort of tried to undermine the work of the Ditch and the journalists that are doing this story. I thought that in particular was a concerning messaging to come out from party leaders yesterday in terms of not addressing and actually answering the questions that do need to be answered, instead taking this sort of attack on the press instead was, I think, quite concerning.
Well, it was almost out of the Trump handbook, wasn't it? Because Micheál Martin effectively implied that the Russians are pulling the strings here. I mean, that is Trump style.
There's a political agenda. At the end of the day, those of us in the media have a responsibility to hold politicians to account. That is part and parcel of being a free press. And the language that was used, especially the linking to Russia, was really quite concerning. And to use that under parliamentary privilege is a point of concern. But to Patrick's point as well about the crescendo here, look, this is going to go in an inevitable way. There's obviously something not right about this story. It's going to build up. It's going to get to a point where there's going to have to be answers. It's not going to go away. And in the end, this position may indeed be untenable. So, why drag it out? Because it does actually weaken the faith that people in the public have in the political institutions. It creates this environment where the public are not sure if they can really trust what our political leaders are saying. So it does have a damaging effect on public discourse and public view of politics. To the wider point around distraction politics, yes, I think we do live in an era where there is a tendency for kind of distraction politics, or for the media in a way also to sort of lean into stories that can maybe get more clicks on a page, and that can be a challenge. It's part and parcel, I think, of living in a digital era where social media has become so dominant, and it does kind of lend itself into that sphere. I think in Ireland it's maybe not as extreme as it is in the UK. I think in the UK we have a serious challenge around the Conservative Party using kind of the quote culture wars as a way to try and stir up tension, and that's something that we have to try and manage.
Yeah, and I think that came to the fore, didn't it, during the week? Jacob Rees-Mogg was in an interview with a lady whose name I just don't have in my head, if the truth be told. And she was making a strong point in that regard. And it kind of feeds into this conversation, isn't it? That it actually, not only just the media, but it suits politicians for us to be talking about stuff that is not insignificant, don't get me wrong, but really it doesn't put bread on the table, it doesn't put a roof over the house, it doesn't get you a roof over the head, it doesn't get you into the GPs or the hospital. Paddy, are we all part of something here? Not us literally as such, though, where it suits people for us to have our eye off the ball. And, the opposition are complicit in it, because they're not going in saying, hold on, yeah, whatever's happened with Deputy Collins here, what about this? This is the big crisis here. They're saying, right, we can possibly actually unsettle this government. We're going to keep at it. I can't remember what it was before the Easter break, because there's so much stuff that comes along. But 2-3 weeks, no meaningful stuff discussed. It was just about point scoring. I think we've had enough of it now, Paddy. We want our issues fixed now.
You see, I don't know how we've got ourselves into this situation, Greg, and I'm talking about us now in society in general, because it appears to me anyway that the more educated we are in this country and the more tools we have to bring information to us, the less we want it, or the less we can. Either we can't cope with it or we don't want to cope with it. We're more interested in sort of day-to-day living, or we're more interested in Netflix TV and Amazon Prime and all that kind of stuff. I mean, if you look at the dilemma, for instance, facing RTE management at the moment about who's going to replace Ryan Tubridy for the Late Late Show, and the predicament is that partly that there's very low viewership under 40 years of age, people that are watching the Late Late Show and current affairs programs. And the problem for that then is that advertising aimed at that audience, there's no point advertising if people aren't going to be watching the program. So what are they watching? Well, they're watching, like myself, I don't watch the Late Late Show. I'm watching something else like Netflix or so on and so forth. I mean, I have 3 adult children and they watch a minimal amount of mainstream TV and probably less radio. So are they and people of their ilk interested in that? Are they interested in Niall Collins at all? Do they even know that this issue is a topic? I mean, they see it. They see it.
They aren't interested. They aren't interested. My 2 oldest boys have. I don't think they've ever really watched scheduled TV, if I could call it that. It's either Netflix, YouTube, or something. They simply don't, and they wouldn't, and they probably would be. But they do have. They're just interested in different things. It's not that they're zombies. Like, they're just interested in different things. And I think you're perfectly right. So you saying then that there is a shrinking audience, Paddy, or appetite for the complicated stuff, the day-to-days, the stuff that is really meaningful.
Yeah, we're soon in a situation in this country, I suspect, that, remember, there's only 6 out of 10 people that are entitled to vote in this country actually do. And I'll be very surprised if that number remains that high in years to come. It will probably be less than that. It's a lot less than that. The engagement in Britain is a lot less than that. So people are not voting. They're not putting a political person or party into power that's going to advocate on behalf of their interests. They're disengaging. They're not watching the news. They're not watching current affairs. They're in, day-to-day living, or they're watching sport, or they're watching movies, or whatever. I mean, it's probably safe to say that there's a good 50% of the population out there are not engaged, and they don't care, Greg.
No, and they're not on Twitter arguing either, because their life is just, they've got other things going on, or any social media. But Emma, it's our fault then, to some extent. You've been involved in campaigns. You know what can be achieved. It's a terrible struggle, I know that, but people themselves can make a change. We've seen what the people affected by defective concrete were able to achieve. Okay, it's not quite there yet, but they were able to force something across the line. And we've seen that historically when people have taken to the streets and risen up, that change can be affected. But if we are all just sitting on our hands, and we are only clicking, who's going out with whomever, maybe the media and the politicians are playing to the audience, and we're the audience, and this is what we want.
Yeah, I think it's a wider problem around a very disillusioned population, where we have a political system that is not operating as best as it could. People are suffering. There are significant challenges around basically how people are living their lives, the housing crisis, the young people that are having to leave en masse for better opportunities. And people just don't see politics as something that's working and look to different ways to affect change. We see that particularly with younger demographics, where young people are now turning away from going to the voting booth and instead opting to do digital campaigns or protests or other ways to be part of a community. And those ways do exist. And it's also part of a global agenda as well, because now we have, with the rise of social media, we have a global community where people can engage in social change on a much larger scale online than they can perhaps in their own community. So it kind of all plays into this wider picture, and it creates a challenge. Really, it creates a challenge around democracy and how you try to increase participation in political processes. And it ties into this bigger conversation around how effective our political institutions are. Can they be strengthened? And we need to find a way to try and inspire particularly the next generation to try and use that avenue. And it does come down, I think, again, back to the social media stuff. Look, it's maybe not Twitter, but now we have the rise of TikTok as well, where people have 10 seconds is maybe what you have tops to be able to try and get someone's attention, and then they're going to move on to something else. So as a society, the way we are consuming our media is changing at a rapid pace, and that creates challenges for how you're reporting the news, how you're getting across issues to the populace, and how you're trying to strengthen democracy in the long term.
And I think we had another brilliant example of this week, in that Tucker Carlson left Fox News. Now, there's a population of, 350 million people in the United States. Tucker Carlson's nightly viewership at its best was 3.5 million, 1% of the United States population. And yet his departure was global news, led the BBC, led RTE. You would swear something had happened to the president over there or whatever. That being said, he posts a 2-minute clip on Twitter which has, last time I checked, 60 million views, a 2-minute clip. Now, if that is not an indication as to how things are changing, for good or bad, I'm not quite sure. You know, he went from effectively talking to himself percentages-wise on American TV to having this global audience of 12 times our population. Paddy, where do you see it going? Because I think that really underlined how different things are for me. It was a really good recent example of how things are changing, especially in a small country like this. You talked of the viewership for RTE. I mean, in 5 years' time, no one will be watching live TV on RTE, I don't think. Paddy, can you hear me? No, Paddy's frozen there. Okay. Sorry, I beg your pardon. No, so I was just talking to... I waffled. My point is that it's clear, it's demonstrated recently how people consume stuff is changing.
Well, the most recent AGM of Media House, the company that owns the Irish Independent newspaper, said that the Irish Independent will stop. It will be in paper form. It will stop being published in paper form within 5 years. So if you go into a newspaper, you won't find the independent newspaper there. You'll have to look at it on your phone or your tablet or whatever. And it's going to change in a very big way. And you see, looking at media on your phone, it's not that it's difficult, but it's much harder to read a long article than it is to read it on a hard copy of newspaper in front of you. But this is all like trying to pick up mercury with the spoon, Greg, because political parties, do they actually stand for anything anymore, with the exception of possibly the Green Party? Because what political parties are doing now, and this started off in the United States, is they're carrying out focus groups, and whatever's coming back from the focus groups, that's their policy. So political parties and the media, to a degree, are giving the people what they want, but they're not giving them what they need. And quite often they don't give them what they need because it's too unpopular. Like the Green Party are advocating on behalf of climate change issues. They don't do well, as a rule, in rural constituencies because it's many of their policies seem to be anti-farming and anti-rural or whatever. So what chance have we got then if, you know, the political parties are just giving us back what we've given to them? And, you know, wouldn't it be nice if we had 4 or 5 political parties who stood for something, all stood for different things, to give us a choice? The problem for us, you see, Greg, is there's no choice, and we don't care who gets into power. I mean, somebody said recently on the radio, and I'm not able to tell you who said it, and they referred to Sinn Féin, is the closer Sinn Féin come to power, the closer they look like a party of power. Okay? So we may have expectations of something grand and different from Sinn Féin if and when they get into power. But the probability is it will be the same old, same old.
Yeah, and Emma, what's happening too, I think, what we are seeing too, is that parties, any of them, then are actually going with the flow. In other words, they're going with what's popular. They're trying to play to the masses. Whatever is being talked about or attitudes in certain places, they'll go with that. And then what happens with the media too, I think, as they become... as we become, I can't pretend I'm different. Well, we're doing very well, thankfully, but we're independent. But the further the more difficult it is to make a living, like with newspapers and TV stations and what have you. So they pick a side. So they have, and you've seen that in America now. So you'll have a network will pick the Republican side or pick the Democrat side. Then you've got half the population in a bubble, the other half in a bubble, and it just keeps the media ticking along for another wee while. But where does it all end up, Emma? Because I think things are changing. We can never go back to where we were. So, but I don't know where we're going either. Like, is it something like Black Mirror where we'll just vote on things on our phones? Because we just have to go with
Black Mirror cuts a bit too close to home. I don't know about the rest of you, but for me, sometimes it doesn't seem too far-fetched for some of those directions of travel. I think the point that Patrick's making around how it's increasingly difficult to see the difference between political parties is very, very accurate. They are kind of all cut from the same cloth and change whichever way the wind goes in terms of what's a popular policy instead of what actually needs to be addressed. In Northern Ireland, we face particular challenges because, of course, we have a continuing situation here in the media where we have, for example, the Newsletter, which is a unionist-leaning newspaper. Then we have the Irish News, which leans more to to a nationalist audience, and then we have the Belfast Telegraph, which would lean somewhere between the two. But that kind of representation within the media, where it's playing to one community or another. In the US, you have, of course, a Democrat and Republican. It does create challenges for democracy. It creates challenges for politics, and it creates challenges for how people can engage with the political system. We have seen that there's been now a 15-year decline in democracy on a global scale, and there is a significant rise in populist politics and populist tactics. And that, I think, is beginning to seep into politics here in Ireland as well, and creates a challenge for how the media responds to that in a very, very fast changing landscape.
Yeah, and last one on this before the break, Paddy, let me put it to you. I mean, you, as Emma is, and me to some extent, you know, you follow politics and you have an interest in it and what have you. But I do get a sense of, I don't want to put, you can describe it yourself, that maybe you feel disillusioned in it or the system currently. But whatever you do feel, give me the word, you articulate yourself. But I'd be curious if you kind of are disappointed with the direction of traffic when that began, if that makes sense. We're trying to timeline where people like yourself might have become, and I'll use your own words, but just frustrated with the system, that you started seeing this blend of all things seem to be the same cheek of the one bum, if you know what I mean.
Well, when did it happen, Greg? Well, I suppose it's like the lines of the book, Ernest Hemingway's book about... ask somebody, how did you go? When did you go bankrupt? Well, gradually and then suddenly. I suppose it happened over a 20-year. It happened over, a 20-year period, but it's been exacerbated very, very badly over the last 2 years. And I think there's a direction of travel at the moment that it's unstoppable. And there will be probably a new phase and a new life beyond the current trend, and I don't know what that is, but we're heading headlong anyway into the digital age and digital media, and I don't think that's something that we can stop.
No? Okay. Listen, thank you so much for your contribution so far. You're listening to Emma D'Souza, a writer, campaigner, peace builder and founder of the Civic Initiative, and also Paddy Rooney-Piro of Friends of Letterkenny University Hospital, and you're keeping us busy on the phones as well. We'll get on to the next topic and some of your comments after we take this quick break.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook and at highlandradio.com. The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, with monster loans available up to €60,000 for all occasions. Visit letterkennycu.ie.
Mockra Demand Farm Transfer Scheme. For more in your Farmer's Journal, here's Paul Mooney.
Young farmers call on Taoiseach to incentivise farm succession plans. Brazilian wood chip ships 7,000 kilometres to be burned in County Offaly. Michael Fitzmaurice outlines his plans for a farming and rural party. Land rental prices predicted to jump 14%. Factories take record numbers of feedlot cattle. Plus, in our farm succession series, we look at the pros and cons of prenuptial agreements.
All in this week's Irish Farmer's Journal, on sale now.
Ready for a change or upgrade? Think Seat. With our wide range of award-winning Seat SUV, including the bold crossover Arona, the family favourite Ateca, or the spacious 7-seater Tarraco. All vehicles come with great offers on finance and PCP options. Book a test drive today by calling DMG Motors on 074 9721 396 or visit dmgmotors.ie. Choose your new 231 Seat with confidence with a visit to DMG Motors, Clare Road, Donegal Town.
The groom goes free. The groom goes free. Yes, you heard it. The Groom's Room. Evolve Clothing, Letterkenny Retail Park. The groom goes free. Call in today. Terms and conditions apply.
Join me, David James, and the Jive Time Show this Friday, live from Easy Living Furniture Store at the Crescent Link Retail Park in Derry. We're there to celebrate the annual Easy Living Furniture Store Roadshow sale. So join us live from 2:30pm this Friday from the Easy Living Furniture Store, Crescent Link Retail Park. This amazing roadshow sale ends this Bank Holiday Monday.
Caller says the Dáil is a bubble where once inside it, all about the politicians' interests and citizens' needs are forgotten or ignored. All talk, no action. Also, there is apathy towards these controversies because, as usual, the rules don't apply to the political class. One rule for them and corporate interests and another for ordinary citizens. Another. People have copped on to the extent of media bias that was out there. If it wasn't The Ditch, it would have been some other outlet to call out the scandal and the bias reporting. But you could argue that, as I say, we were going to move on, but I'll just stick with this. But you could argue that the ditch is part of biased reporting, in that it is very much established to call out issues in politics, primarily with whichever party is in power. That happens to be the Greens, Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil at the moment. I mean, we can't pretend that the ditch are the saviour of independent journalism either, really, could we? And I don't mean that with any disrespect to them, Paddy, but I mean, they're just the opposition of the Independent, for example. Or is that going too far, I wonder?
That's directed to myself?
Yes, anyone will take it at this stage after that silence.
Well, I suppose, you see, if you look at, there was a sort of a wee cut in my feed.
I understand.
But, I was going to say, investigative journalism doesn't seem to be as heavy and as cutthroat as it used to be. I mean, when last did RTE come up with anything very serious about anything? You know, the primetime investigates that we used to have here and there, or what... the kind of stuff that Mark Hyde done with the Independent. Did he work with the Independent when he got stuck into John Delaney of the FAI and stuff like that? Those kind of stories are actually rare. They're good when they come, but they're rare. If the Ditch magazine isn't doing this, who's going to do it? I mean, RTE at the moment seem to be in a situation that they're far too fearful of upsetting the government in case they do something with their licence fee or stuff like that, because they're depending a lot on the hand that feeds them, and they don't seem to be wanting to get into that kind of place at the moment.
But you see, the problem we have with the government too, the problem we have with the government too as well is they pick and choose their representatives, where they go, when they go, whether there's someone else to debate them or not, whether listeners will be able to engage with them or not, and what happens is that RTE News Talk say, right, well, if we want access to such and such a politician, we are going to have to do it on these terms. Now, unfortunately, there are people now that no longer will come on this programme. I don't think this is a particularly controversial programme, to be honest with you. I think we just try and ask the questions. It's not, I'm not a shock jock, right? I don't have any particular leanings in any way, which shape or form. But because some people don't like the line of questioning on serious issues, then all of a sudden they no longer are available. And RTE maybe can't afford, or those national stations maybe can't afford to say, right, okay, then, if we just won't bring you on then, or you're not coming on, but we're not going to play by your rules. That's not journalism, though.
Greg, is it any wonder then we're all going to Netflix and Amazon Prime if political parties either won't want to engage with national or local media outlets, or they don't want to, or they can't, or whatever? So what's the point then in doing that? Look at the tangle that the BBC got into themselves when they tried to censure Gary Lineker over the comments he made on Twitter about the government's policy on migrants coming into the country. And there was a public outcry about it at the time. But it's very, very clear that the government was wagging their finger at the Director General of the BBC and telling him, to pull him up and pull him into line or whatever. Now, he's back. Gary Lineker's back presenting Match of the Day again. But we'll see now, has he curtailed his views or whatever. But governments can do it, and they will do it. I mean, way back when RTE was set up, I think in 61 or 62, Eamon de Valera, who was, I think he was president. Was he president or Taoiseach at the time? He was president, I think, at the time. And he said that this is it had the power to be a force for good, but it also had to be a power to force for bad, and also the negative impact that it would make on the body politic. But it's a poor thing now, you see, if all the media outlets are going to scurry around and try that they don't offend anybody, particularly the government, particularly because there's issues about regulation and control and funding and advertising and so on and so forth. Because all of these outlets are all at the end of the day, they're commercial outlets. They have to make a profit. Even RTE, even though it doesn't make a profit, but it still can't be completely spendthrift or whatever. It has to take cognizance of what it spends.
And I'm just a final point to you on this. I mean, we are a small population on this island. The way journalists move into government positions, the way heads of organisations move to lobby groups, the way senior members in certain sectors then move into senior roles in private sectors, or a head of one council heads up on the board of something else. Maybe no one wants to fall out with anyone for fear of missing out on a job opportunity, but that's no way. It's no way to get up and go to work in the morning. I mean, how can people,
Yeah, I think this just highlights how important it is to have independent media and how important it is to have investigative journalism, and that we do have a dearth of that in certain terms of the media landscape in Ireland. So that's why pieces that are being done by the Ditch and others are important, and we do have to have that balance between an independent media and, of course, then we do have a situation where the state broadcaster obviously has its own particular links to the government, and I think that does create challenges.
Yeah, and I think those comments Micheál Martin made about the Ditch and connecting it to Russia is incredibly significant. Maybe it doesn't seem so now, but it just is a different turn in terms of the narrative and the conversations out there. Sinn Féin President Michelle O'Neill, Vice President, I beg your pardon, I give her a promotion there. Michelle O'Neill's announced that she will attend the coronation of Britain's King Charles. The party leader at Stormont said the gesture demonstrated her commitment to build good relations, advancing peace and reconciliation. Foyle side People Before Profit councillor Sean Harkin said, "We can't sit quietly as £100 million and more is squandered on lavishly celebrating a billionaire in a multi-billion institution while children are being targeted with savage cuts to food grants, speech and therapy supports and so on." I get that, but it's going to happen anyway, whether she's there or not, but you can discuss that. Aintu leader Peadar Tobin, obviously they've got an interest in the Northern Ireland elections coming up. He said Michelle O'Neill attending the coronation of Britain's King Charles confirms and accepts the monarch's position over Northern Ireland. OK, I'll stay with you on this one, Emma. I try not to get too deep into the ins and outs of it. I don't like toxic politics or toxic sport or anything, so I skirt around the edges. I just thought, right, okay, this is akin to the handshake. This is akin to that image in the church of Arlene and Michelle. I don't know. I just thought, all right, okay, this is progressive. But others, obviously, who know much more than I might, Emma, don't think it's a good thing. But I want to know what you think.
Well, I mean, I think that there's an election in 3 weeks, and so a lot of that commentary from competing parties is rooted in the fact that people in Northern Ireland will be going to the polls. Obviously we had the handshake not too long ago in terms of Michelle O'Neill and Alex Maskey meeting with the King then, and they had a very warm exchange. This is, I think, completely unsurprising that Sinn Féin have taken this position where they are going to attend. I think it does show leadership and is part of a broader transformation that the party has been undergoing in terms of its transition into being very slick with its PR, in terms of trying to move forward with its image and trying to show that the party is able to represent more than one community. Michelle O'Neill is the First Minister in waiting, and the language from a PR perspective is very good messaging in terms of really trying to hammer home this message that she will be a First Minister for all. That would be wonderful if we could have that in Northern Ireland.
And in that, Emma, if she didn't accept this invitation, then it would have made those words incredibly hollow.
Exactly. It will completely undercut their entire messaging over the last couple of years that they've been building up to. So this was a natural response. I think it is welcome in Northern Ireland because we do have an extremely divisive political system. We have a political ideology and unionism that really is struggling with a position now where they have become a minority in our political system, with the DUP now waiting to take the position of Deputy First Minister for the first time if they ever decide to take up that position and allow us to have some kind of functioning government. So we have we've got changing landscapes here in terms of the political position in Northern Ireland, and Sinn Féin are, I think, from a PR perspective, doing a very good job at changing their messaging. I think if they had not done that, it would have just created a really negative media cycle and discourse cycle around politics here in Northern Ireland. And
All right.
really,
But what about then? I mean, obviously, we have to move forward. But I mean, you could trace Charles's connection back to the army and back to Derry very, very quickly. And for some people, that's still very raw, very recent. Is this a step too far?
We are a post-conflict society.
Yeah.
And that is extremely challenging. And a bigger issue that we have here is the fact that we haven't addressed much of the legacy of the past, that we aren't ensuring that we have policies and procedures in place where people can access truth and justice. We have a situation where families are spending decades trying to go through the court system to try and get some kind of truth and justice for their loved ones. And that has a knock-on effect across society. And there's a bigger thing here as well in terms of how we as a society across this entire island actually look at the past and how we reflect on what really happened here over the last number of decades. So there is that issue at play. And of course, there are a lot of people who have very raw emotions that the past is not that far away from them. And I think that that's a burden that many people carry on their shoulders. But at the same time, we are a post-conflict society. We have now been operating under the Good Friday Agreement for 25 years. There is a need to progress forward and to accept that what happened in the past is not what's happening today, and people are able to change. They are able to move forward, and we have seen that with what happened in the run-up to the Good Friday Agreement when, for example, the IRA put down their arms and opted to go into politics in terms of constitutional politics as the way forward. So we have to sort of try and couple that and move forward as a society and accept that we do need to have some kind of normalization of politics and some kind of normalization of how we see these things. I think that this was a good move by Sinn Féin. Certainly not doing so would have been much worse.
Yeah, and it kind of feels to me like she probably shouldn't have, but probably has to. And I don't mean that as a politically comment, but that's the dilemma, I suppose. Paddy, what do you think?
Well, I suppose, can I put my cards on the table here, Greg, at the outset and say that I'm not a fan of monarchies anywhere, right? And I'm not targeting
Neither
British
am I, for that
here.
matter. I think I find it ridiculous.
The whole idea that somebody can be born into a family and there's automatic power and privilege, whether it's ceremonial power or executive power, where there is no mandate and no accountability, it's just bizarre to me. It's sort of a 14th century concept as far as I'm concerned about. But anyway, that's the by and by. If it's a British thing, if they like it, happy days as far as I'm concerned. Okay. If I was advising Michelle O'Neill, I would advise her 100% to go to it. Because politics is the art of the possible, and it's all about building up networks and relationships and allies and stuff like that. There is a short clip of an interview between whatever journalist, I'm not sure at this point, and a chap called Leonard Hutchinson. He was a member of Derry City Council. He was a member of the Ulster Unionist Party. And this interview took place somewhere in the mid-1960s because it's black and white, and the sort of the glasses and the attire leads me to believe it's around that time. And he's speaking in the most derogatory terms about the Catholic nationalist population in Derry, about their overbreeding and their lack of work ethic and so on and so forth. And he gave the very clear impression that the gerrymandering and the discrimination and the unionist-controlled Stormont government was there to protect the nationalists from themselves. Right, okay. Yeah. Now, that political architecture in Northern Ireland had to be tumbled by fair and foul means, because that attitude was prevalent in Northern Ireland, and I bet you if you scrape the surface, you'll find that still there, not to the same degree, but around a some minor level. And that had to be taken down, and the civil rights movement took it down. And the state's response to the civil rights movement, let the genie out of the bottle, and there was political violence, and that brought down the rest of it. And that whole thing has been recreated again. Anything at all that Michelle O'Neill does has to be done for a purpose. And Emma there articulated very well about King Charles when he was visiting all, let's call them the four home countries after Queen Elizabeth's death, and he came to Belfast. And the Unionist parties, particularly the DUP, were apoplectic with rage because he met the First Minister designate from Sinn Féin, he met the Lord Mayor of Belfast from Sinn Féin, and he met the Speaker of Stormont from Sinn Féin, and they were almost pushed to the background. In fact, I don't think Jeffrey Donaldson, the leader of the DUP, has actually got an invite to the coronation, if my memory strikes me right. So why wouldn't she go? Because they are now Sinn Féin are now becoming the good guys. Yesterday, for instance, and Emma, you'll be very familiar with this, the British government announced their budget, and Northern Ireland has been slashed, and it's commentary somewhere said that it was a budget to punish the DUP. That it turns out that it's a 10% cut in real terms, taking inflation into account. And Jane Brady, the head of the civil service in Northern Ireland, that it was going to cause unprecedented and enduring harm to society in Northern Ireland because the effect it was going to have on public services. So I'm all for her going. Okay. I'm all for her glad handling, and I'm all for her doing it for a particular reason so that she can build her kudos at home.
All right, Paddy, listen, thank you very much as always. Paddy Rooney, PRO of Friends of Letterkenny University Hospital. Great to have you on. Emma, great to have you on as well. Thank you so much for your time, and hopefully you'll come back.
Absolutely.
Excellent. That's good to hear. You too.
Bye, Greg.
That's Emma D'Souza, writer, campaigner, peace builder and founder of the Civic Initiative.
The 9 till noon show with Letterkenny Credit Union. Simplify your debts with a debt consolidation loan from Letterkenny Credit Union. Call us on 074 910 2126 or apply online via our app or in office today.
Tá downig airí beag an níos mó. Ach beidir go gíleach níos mó rud ag an eile. Cílíonn níos mó turbína guithe agus níos mó a chursála. Cílíonn níos mó betheag súlachta agus níos mó stórála fuinmh. Cílíonn níos mó hídrigine agus níos mó fermacha graine. Tis go gílíonn níos mó fuinmh glán marachtáil níos éifachtaí, níos mó nabhsplachas fuinmh. Sin an fá go bhfuil mid níos mó nó món. Fálam níos mó ag mórdinmóna.ie. Board na Mona.
The CFC Interior Stock Disposal Sale ends Bank Holiday Monday. Due to overstock, an incredible £1.5 million worth of stock must go. Don't miss our highest ever discount sale on selected ranges across all departments. The Stock Disposal Sale at CFC Interiors. Sale ends Bank Holiday Monday.
Are you looking for a way to invest for your long-term goals but think you can't afford to? John F. Lowery Financial Services can help. Did you know that you can invest in stock markets and other growth assets with as little as €100 per month? There are many great benefits to saving apart from the obvious. It makes you feel good, reduces worry, prepares you for emergencies, teaches self-discipline and gives you choice. These benefits all make for a healthier, more stress-free environment. So why wait? Start your investment journey today by visiting jfl.ie. John F. Lowery & Associates Limited, trading as John F. Lowery Financial Services, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Investments can go down as well as up. Past performance is not a reliable guide to future performance.
Highland Radio weather updates with Ireland West Airport. Lanzarote is back. Check out our new weekly flights to Lanzarote with Ryanair. Ireland West Airport. Don't just take off, take it easy.
Becoming increasingly sunny with scattered showers today. Highest temperatures of 14 or 15 degrees in light westerly or variable breezes. OK, we'll be back with more after we take a break for the news and obituary notices. We've got a really busy couple of hours coming up for you. Stay right where you are this Friday, the 28th of April.
The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union. Digital loans now available. Apply online or via our app today and get your loan transferred directly to your current account.
Grove Furnishing's big 45th anniversary sale ends this Saturday, the 29th. A big selection of ex-display suites, beds, mattresses, dining sets and occasional furniture, all greatly reduced, with many items half price or less. The sale you know is genuine ends this Saturday at Grove Furnishings, your local easy living store on Kiltoy Road, Letterkenny.
The Kilkenny Design Sale is now on. There's up to 50% off selected lines. Enjoy savings on your favourite brands across clothing, accessories, jewellery, homeware, gifting and much more. Sale runs until May 1st nationwide and on kilkennyshop.com.
Mockra Demand Farm Transfer Scheme. For more in your Farmer's Journal, here's Paul Mooney.
Young farmers calling Taoiseach to incentivise farm succession plans. Brazilian wood chip ships 7,000 kilometres to be burned in County Offaly. Michael Fitzmaurice outlines his plans for a farming and rural party. Land rental prices predicted to jump 14%. Factories take record numbers of feedlot cattle. Plus, in our farm succession series, we look at the pros and cons of prenuptial agreements.
All in this week's Irish Farmer's Journal, on sale now.
Following on from their triumphant version of translations, Ireland's National Theatre, the Abbey Theatre, presents Frank McGuinness's lively new version of Tartuffe at Greenan Theatre from the 3rd to the 6th of May. Directed by Katrina McLaughlin, this endearing comedy follows the hijinks of the irrepressible and charming con man Tartuffe. Book now at ungreenan.com.
Live on
online and on the Highland Radio app. This is Highland Radio News.
Good morning, it's 10 o'clock. Donal Kavanagh at the news desk. A Strabane priest says the hearts of people in the town are broken following the deaths of 3 family members in a crash outside Auchnacloy yesterday. Dan McCain, his sister Christine Duffy and their aunt Julia McSorley, all from Strabane, lost their lives when a minibus and truck collided on the Tullyvar Road at around 7:30 yesterday morning. 4 other family members were injured in the crash. They were travelling home after attending a funeral in England. 2 have since been discharged from hospital. A solidarity rosary will take place at the Grotto in Strabane this evening to remember those who lost their lives and those who were injured. Father Declan Boland, parish priest of Strabane, says the people of the town will rally round the families who have been devastated.
To be taken out so tragically, it's really difficult to come to terms with the dimensions of this loss. The whole community of Strabane is mourning. This family come from an area we should call the head of the town. It's a close-knit community, they're a loving community, they're extremely supportive, and they have already started to show that solidarity. And I know in the difficult and trying days ahead, they will be there for this family.
Barnardo's wants local authorities to give families facing eviction more certainty when securing emergency accommodation. The charity is highlighting the alarming number of children who are homeless in Ireland. The figure stands at roughly 3,000. Stephen Moffat from Barnardo's says often children are forced to move schools if they're moved to different accommodation.
The one thing that we would certainly want to be seeing at an absolute minimum is that there's a guarantee that children who are living in homes where they become homeless and are forced into emergency accommodation are not compelled to move school. And what I mean by compelled, due to the distance, long distance, that they're no longer able to stay in the same school that they're in. The level of trauma and upheaval that can cause is really, really significant.
A man detained in connection with an investigation involving the Garda Síochána Ombudsman Commission has been released without charge. The man, aged in his 60s, was detained yesterday in connection with allegations of withholding information. The arrest follows the resignation of a GSOC investigator alleged to have attended a party at which Jerry the Monk Hutch was present, hours after being found not guilty of the Regency Hotel murder. Gardaí say the man has now been released without charge and a file is being prepared for the DPP. The Donegal-based road safety organisation Park is urging the Road Safety Authority to address the issue of having driving disqualifications in Great Britain and Northern Ireland recognised in the Republic. There is mutual recognition of driving bans between the two jurisdictions, meaning the imposition of a ban on one side of the border will lead to the imposition of a ban by the courts on the other side. However, there can be long delays in the process. Figures released recently to Park show that so far this year, there have been 40 cases before the courts. Of those, 5 have been affirmed, 24 still have proceedings underway, and in 8 cases, the disqualification expired before the proceedings ended. Park founder Susan Gray says this raises serious questions.
The RSA is drip feeding information. We need to know how long some of these cases are ongoing. They say in the reply that some of them have been referred to RSA prior to 2023, and we know there's an expiry date on these disqualifications. Only 5 out of the 40 have been affirmed so far. These are drivers that will be disqualified for serious offences like drink driving or driving while disqualified or dangerous driving.
A new HSE COVID booster campaign begins today. Those over 70, people with weak immune systems and care home residents are among those eligible for a top-up. It'll be available from participating GPs, pharmacists or at local vaccination centres. Eileen Whelan, national lead of the COVID-19 vaccination programme, says the campaign should take a month to complete.
The evidence that NIAC have based this decision on is people in this category are higher at risk of hospitalisation and severity of illness, and that their immunity wanes over time. So that's why they have specifically looked at people over 70, and this group of people need 2 boosters throughout the year. So it's important that everybody comes forward now during the month of May. The programme is running through May and then should complete at the end of May.
Well, the forecast after a dull start, it'll become increasingly sunny with scattered showers today. Top temperatures 14 or 15 degrees Celsius in light westerly or variable breezes. Clear spells tonight will give way to mostly cloudy conditions building from the west with a little patchy rain on coasts. Lowest temperatures 7 or 8 degrees Celsius in light variable breezes. Good sunny spells tomorrow Saturday with scattered showers in the afternoon. Some of those could be heavy. Top temperatures 14 to 16 degrees Celsius in light southeasterly or variable breezes. And that's Highland Radio News. We're back with news headlines again at 11 o'clock. Until then, from the news team, good morning.
The obituary notice is for this Friday morning, April the 28th. The death has taken place of Robert McGee, Tops de Mons Rafo. His remains will repose at his late residence from 1 o'clock this afternoon. Funeral leaving from there on Sunday afternoon at 1:15 for 2 o'clock funeral service in Rafo Presbyterian Church, followed by burial in the family plot in the adjoining graveyard. Family time please from 10 p.m. to 10 a.m. and on the morning of the funeral. Family flowers only, donations in lieu to the Coronary Care Unit, Letterkenny University Hospital and Rafo Orange Lodge 1921, care of any family member or Terence McClintock, funeral director. The death has occurred of Michael Murphy, San Francisco and formerly 10 Marion Park, Buncrana. His remains will be reposing at the home of his daughter Siobhan at 11 Ballynacarriga, Rocky Town, Buncrana on Sunday from 10 a.m. until 10 p.m. Removal from there on Monday morning at 10:15 to St Mary's Church, Cockhill for Requiem Mass at 11 o'clock, followed by interment in the adjoining cemetery. Requiem Mass can be viewed on churchservices.tv/Cockhill. The death took place in February of Maisie Scott, Romford, Essex, England and formerly Ballyheron, Kilmacrennan. A service of thanksgiving for her life will be held at Kilmacrennan Presbyterian Church on Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock, followed by interment of ashes in the family plot in the adjoining graveyard. The death has taken place of Martha Deany, née McCluskey, late of 35 Ballyrory, Cloddy, County Derry, reposing at her late residence. Funeral from there tomorrow at 12 noon for 12:30 Requiem Mass in St Joseph's Church, Craigban, interment immediately afterwards in the adjoining graveyard. The death has taken place of William Ban McFadden, Knockfolla, Gidor. Remains reposing at his daughter Frances Gallagher's house, Upper Keeldrum, Gortahorg. House strictly private for family only, please. Funeral Mass in St Colmkills Church, Knockfolla, tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock, with burial afterwards in Knockfolla Cemetery. The death has occurred of John Joe Harkin, Gaddy Duff Clomani. Remains reposing at his late residence. Funeral from there tomorrow morning at 10:30, going to St Mary's Church, Clomani for Requiem Mass at 11 o'clock, with burial afterwards in the adjoining cemetery. Family time please from 10 o'clock tonight. Family flowers only, donations if desired to St Colmkill Village, Clea, Clomani, care of any family member or McFeely funeral directors. John Joe's funeral mass can be viewed live on churchservices.tv. And the death has occurred of Paddy Lyons, Korean Ballybuffet. Funeral leaving McCool's Funeral Home Ballybuffet this morning at 11:20 for Requiem Mass in the Church of Our Lady of Perpetual Succor, Glenfin at 12 noon. Interment afterwards in Kilty Vogue Cemetery. The Requiem Mass will be streamed live via the parish webcam. Donations in lieu of flowers, if so desired, to the Donegal Hospice, care of any family member. For more details, including any family health guidelines for wakes and funerals, please go to highlandradio.com.
The new Steakhouse Stack is here.
Say what?
With 2 beef patties, crispy onions and peppercorn sauce. It's McDonald's, but the kind of McDonald's you'd make an occasion of. The kind that asks, date night, and answers, you bet. That deserves a lunch day, not just a lunch hour. The new Steakhouse Stack. It's McDonald's. And then some. Available until the 9th of May. Served from 11 a.m. Participating restaurants only.
Welcome back to the 9 till noon show. Good morning if you've just joined us. Thanks to Emma and Paddy again for a very interesting first hour. Let's start off this hour with a positive one here. It comes in from an emailer. Hi Greg, please can you say a big thank you to those who helped us out yesterday when my toddler locked himself in the car. Oh, they're always up to no good. What a nightmare. But Lisa goes on to say, thank you to Gardaí, Paul and Noel, the wonderful staff at Little Buncrana, all members of the public that stopped to offer help, and especially to the group of gentlemen that eventually got him out safe and sound. Thank you all again for the kindness you showed. A grateful mum. Fair play to everyone that got involved there. Caller says, ignoring the elephant in the room, Highland Radio is one of the most pro-established media outlets in Ireland. And listen, thank you for that. And I really do appreciate you sending that in, because I get ones that say the other way as well, that that this programme feels anti-establishment, which it's not as such. So I appreciate that, just to give a little bit of balance, because if one thinks one thing and one thinks the other, then hopefully the truth lies somewhere in the middle. No surprise with Michelle O'Neill attending the coronation. Ain't Do's Pater Tobin is spot on. Sinn Féin sold out their Irish Republican credentials when they went to Westminster to beg the British government to introduce abortion into the north, is how they see it. A caller says, I'm a pensioner who got the €200 extra from the government, but imagine my shock to discover my rent had been taken twice this week because I got the 200. When I tried to reclaim it, I'm told to try to reclaim it myself. Has this happened to anyone else? Okay, this is an interesting one. So they got the €200 extra payment from the government, but then rent was taken from them twice. I'm not really quite sure the makeup of that or how that might work, but if anyone else out there has an insight or it affected them, please get in touch and see if it's something that we can chase up on listeners' behalf. Today is Go Purple Day, and Maria's first engagement of the day is at... I'm reading the introduction to our next guest. Right, I'll get to that. But anyway, a good opportunity to mention Go Purple Day. What is the panel's view on protesting outside politicians' homes? Is it a step too far, especially with a new baby in the house? That sounds to me like the person who texted in believes it is. I don't. I think decisions are made not in people's homes, but then people might say decisions are made in the dole that affects people in their homes. That being said, there has to be a better way, doesn't there? Or does there? I just, it's not something that would rest very easy with me. I just think if that's what we're resulting to, then all hope is lost of doing it through any other means. What do you think yourself? Someone asked this question of the panel. Might as well ask you guys out there. Joe Biden has announced that he'll run for the president again in 2024. They asked, does there come a time when you should gracefully retire? But I mean, he's in his 80s and he's decided to run again. I think he'll be 86 when his term concludes, the next term, if he's successful in it. Why not? If he's capable, I don't think his age should be a barrier. I'm not talking to his capabilities or not, because it seems an awful lot of people in American politics in the higher echelons of it are older. But if he's competent, age shouldn't be a factor. If he's incompetent, age shouldn't be a factor. So I don't think, personally for me, and as I say, throwing it out to you, the audience, it doesn't matter to me what age somebody is if they're competent. And if they're incompetent, it also doesn't. I don't see the relevance of age in that regard, if that makes sense. I think the focus shouldn't be on what age he is. It's whether he's competent, regardless of what age he is. My view on Michelle O'Neill is, if they don't want to attend the British Parliament, she should decline the invite to the coronation. Okay. I want to get through some of these comments because you're so good to get involved in the conversation. Dr. Joe Kelly was 100% right yesterday. People are too distracted with trying to survive our daily lives that they pay no attention to politics. Big loss for the Irish people. We need another Kennedy or Collins to get the people involved again. But I think I don't think it is actually that. I think there's definitely a part of that. I think what is that there are some people that feel so detached that politics doesn't speak to them. It won't improve their situation, or maybe won't even disimprove it. So they feel, what's the point in getting involved? And then what happens in maybe coming close to election time, you start all of a sudden looking after those that might be more inclined to vote. And that's perhaps what we might see over the next year or so, that some budgets will be targeted towards the demographics that generally do vote. Maybe the squeezed middle, maybe the working poor. The big focus will be in that direction because they're probably more likely to get out and vote. That's maybe a cynical attitude, but I do think there are large portions of the population that feel really that whatever happens, it's not going to affect them, maybe even positively or negatively. Greg, the government is handling it the way they are. It's arrogance. Doesn't matter where the information came from. It's true, and it's looking very likely that it's true. Well, the basic fundamental reporting of the ditch has been confirmed by Niall Collins' statement. It just comes down to the nitty-gritties of it now. A caller says if the ditch was attacking a certain opposition party, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael would be lapping it up, in my opinion. Or if the shoe was on the other foot, okay. Robert Watson Collins' arrogance certainly shines a light on questionable politics for when it suits them and not held to account. And more coming in. But what we will do is take a break for the bingo numbers, because I know you're waiting to play, and then our next guest will join us.
The county's #1 talk show, the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio.
It's time for NCBI Bingo on Highland Radio.
It's Friday the 28th of April. You're playing on the yellow sheet. The reference number is S5. It's game number 17. The numbers are 21, 88, 86, 8, 46, 6, 48, 57, 34, and finally 81. Phone your claim to 9104833 before 8 tonight, leaving your name, contact number and the name of the shop where you purchased your book, and we'll call you back the next working day. Get all your NCBI bingo information at highlandradio.com.
Make great photos into beautiful gifts at McGee's Chemist Letterkenny. Different gift ideas include canvas prints, freestanding or ready-to-hang art blocks, and personalised photo books, perfect to mark any occasion. There's also jigsaws, calendars, mugs, and much more. For details, visit mcgees.ie. Turn your favourite moments into something truly special with McGee's Chemist Letterkenny.
Century Complex is the perfect family day out. Kids will love exploring Century Play. Lots of tasty food options available at Backstage and Baitas, and Century Cinemas are showing exciting kids movies, comedies, dramas, action movies and more. Call us on 074 91 21976 or visit centurycinemas.ie for more information.
With brand new state-of-the-art facilities, get your car serviced in iMotors. We cater for all makes and models. We offer all your servicing needs. Tyre replacement and 3D laser alignment. Plus split your service bill over 4 payments with our new bumper facility. Call into us today or visit imotors.ie to book your service.
The 9 till noon show with Letterkenny Credit Union, now offering mortgages from 40,000 to 600,000 euro with no hidden fees or transaction charges. Letterkenny Credit Union, 9102127.
Okay, you're very welcome back to the programme. We welcome into studio now MEP, Fine Gael MEP for this region, Maria Walsh. Thanks so much for joining us. Good to have you with us.
Appreciate it.
I
to be back into the county again.
Yeah, exactly. I normally don't comment on people's appearances because I don't want to get cancelled or something. You know, I don't know. But I couldn't help but notice you're dressed in purple, and it is Go Purple Day by accident or design. I'm hoping it's the latter.
No, it's a little bit more pinkish than purplish, but I'm delighted because this is the brightest colour.
Is this purple?
I would call that. I would call the sound piece there purple. Yeah, so I blend. But it was the brightest thing I had, and considering today is such an important day, I was trying to make sure I was doing my bit in terms of not just talking about awareness, but also looking a little bit more colourful and in line with such an important day.
Yeah, it is. It's a very important day, and it's been marked around the county with various coffee mornings. On Garda Síochána have one going on in Letterkenny as well. The Donegal Domestic Violence Services. I think it serves as a good opportunity to talk about these issues that aren't going away, and in fact, for a lot of women, for different reasons, things are going backwards around the world.
Yeah, unfortunately, and we often, when we look at issues like domestic violence or financial, psychological violence, coercive control, which is inclusive of abuse online too, just for any listeners, I was really fortunate to speak with Marie Hainsworth right before this, the manager of Donegal Domestic Violence Service, and here on the ground here in Donegal, over 300 women have experienced domestic violence, and that is just the reports of women who are coming forward. Sadly, we know from even EU research and with Women's Aid that number is more than likely on the low side, and we need to get serious about this. And it's we've talked multiple times before about mental health and the lack of inequalities or social discourse, and unfortunately women or young children are always the most impacted by that. But when you look from our entire history, from survivors and victims in Magdalen laundries to where we are now, sadly there is a huge deficit, and this is simply not good enough in 2023 to have 41% of Irish women know someone within their circle, immediate circle, who've experienced domestic violence or a violence form. It's staggering.
And that is, and I think we can say that's not actually going to be reflective of the instances of it. And I think even things like the in Britain, them testing alert signals, that one of the conversations that had to be had, that if you have a second phone for counselling or for whatever it might be, if you are the victim of domestic violence, to make sure it's on airplane mode or powered off. You know, that's the reality, that something is just testing this alarm system is something that a lot of people have to be conscious of, that it might not alert an abusive partner. I mean, it's really sad, isn't it?
Yeah, it's incredibly, it's heartbreaking that someone has to be that calculated to live and live somewhat safely in a world that is more than likely being calculated for them by their abuser. And I just want to acknowledge again, Marie and I had a really great conversation. One thing in line with what you just shared there was people, perpetrators using the Hague Convention now that Northern Ireland in the UK is effectively a third country, and that was the first time I'd heard that. I had visited Longford Women's Service. I went to Esker House in Athlone, so in every trip I do around the constituency, I always make sure I meet with groups such as Donegal Domestic Violence, and that was the first time I had heard. But naturally you would hear something like that given we're on a border. I just didn't realise it was that to the extent of perpetrators using their children and legislation at an EU level and an international level to essentially abuse a woman. And that is down to the point where you say as you shared, where phones are going on airplane mode. That is the extent of which the tools, the arsenal that victims are experiencing, and survivors. I want to say the language is really important on this one, victims and survivors.
Yeah, for sure. I understand exactly what you're saying. You recently met with the North and Western Regional Assembly. Obviously, I presume you used it as an opportunity to touch base with Fine Gael reps in this region and to hear what the issues for them were. What was your takeaway from that? Maybe firstly, because it might give us an insight, with your meeting with councillors.
Yeah, it was a really important meeting, and a lot of the Northwest Regional Assembly, obviously they work the framework that the EU is, and for those listeners is they're working with businesses, community groups, making sure whatever funding is available that fits the region is being applied for, and then putting pressure on public reps like myself to make sure that we're doing our job and what we agreed to when we got elected. And it was very fascinating to me. I proposed a couple of the priorities that I was working on. Of course, mental health being a core of that, mental health services, and hearing from not just Fine Gael but right across the Northwest Regional Assembly, eight counties, where I think every councillor that spoke both publicly and privately with me had shared the pressures that their constituents are experiencing and the need for a more collected approach. We heard other things like community policing and the fact that constituents have come forward saying they need somewhere or they need to see people more on the streets. I heard that. Addiction services, in terms of the rise of drug use, was not just felt by one county but every county that was represented. And then you went into business supports in terms of labour shortages, and as I mentioned, I'd proposed some of my priorities, one being which a lot of people don't always think at an EU level it impacts the constituency of Midlands Northwest, but the revision of an anti-trafficking directive is about to take place, and I'm one of the co-writers of that revision. And unfortunately, right now in Ireland, linked to Go Purple Day, sadly, is the fact that we have about 1,000 people, predominantly women and children, that are being trafficked in and out of Ireland on a yearly basis. Again, similar to domestic violence, those numbers are often on the low because of reporting. And judicial, sadly, society online and offline is moving a hell of a lot faster than our judicial services and the supports on Garda Síochána need. So with that, a lot of the councillors had flagged just what do they need to do, how can they show up better, how can they make sure if they are seeing something that they have the skills and training to point people where they need to go. So it was a combination of economic and social policy. So it was really, really important that we're not just looking at EU for a funding stream, but also to build our social contract too.
Yeah, and I think you talk often, we've talked in the past about people's mental health, and a lot of it is going to be driven by issues, you know what I mean, in terms of access to services, which could help people earlier on, the stress and strains of issues like defective concrete and others, issues in terms of access to GPs and healthcare. So I'm saying it's not the root cause of it all, but often we talk about, well, what can we do to help people with mental health issues in terms of getting them through that? But I think also we need to start focusing on what can we do to help prevent that, or to help mitigate that in advance. And I'm sort of, Maria, getting a little bit, I find myself getting a little bit frustrated in that, you know, we have Europe, we have European money, we have all the local representatives and what have you, then we have a massive surplus here in this country, and yet we have people like Donegal Domestic Violence Services that's struggling for resources, that's struggling to find accommodation for women when they make that call that we encourage them to do so. So when are we going to stop talking about it, right, and start actually saying let's deliver, because we're a small country, right, and nothing should be beyond us here. We have the money, notwithstanding our massive debt, but I don't think I don't think anyone's going to sort that out anyway, right? It's 240 odd million, whatever. So when are we actually going to start? When is the government going to start, or the agencies of it, and actually start addressing these problems? We know them, we have the resources to fix it, we just need the will, and that lack of will is really damaging politics in this country and others as well. Well,
I mean, sadly, this is where myself comes forward here, probably less of a political hat and more of a community lens to say, I understand that. You know, listening and speaking with Marie this morning as she walked through what the services are doing, what they want to do more of, what their demand, and the fact that that's growing, and the fact that, you know, when they reach out to mental health services, be it TUSA or HSE, when they reach out to those working in the housing system, social workers as a whole, talk therapists, that there's just simply not enough. But within all of that, I do want to say that there is a will, and I don't know if I'm going to convey this correctly, but you know, I can say on behalf of my political party in particular, there is a will to support people who are going through incredibly challenging times, and I can appreciate that we're just not moving fast enough. But the speed of that is changing, and you know, that's the reason why I got up to get involved in politics, because it wasn't moving at the cent. Now I can turn out and say, you know, X, Y, and Z is being delivered, 1, 2, 3 is being delivered, and yes, there is deliverance happening, but not at the pace of which the crisis is.
I could sit opposite you here now, and you'd be well able, I'm sure, to take me on, but to try and paint you into a corner or something about. I'm not interested in that, and people sometimes, I think, misunderstand what I try and do sometimes, in that I'm not anti-government. No. Or no, some people do. Some people don't speak to me anymore because they think I am,
that's
right?
Disappointing.
It really is.
And I'm not saying this because not saying this because you're opposite me. I mean, I think we need free media who are pro-democratic.
100%. And there's, but my point is that it's just, if good things happen, let's shout through the rooftops as well. If we can get more housing, if we can get more resources, you know what I mean? Like, I will scream that from the rooftops equally. But unfortunately, a show like this, where you try and give people's concerns a platform, it's going to sound bad towards the decision makers. But you hope that they do make the right decisions down the line before it's too late. Because we had an interesting conversation between 9 and 10 where we were talking about people voting and what would be voting for and why would they vote, because it doesn't feel like it actually achieves or does anything. But I don't want this show to turn into that either, right? But when are we going to start feeling the changes then? When are we going to start sort of, because at the moment we have nurses that are leaving because they're not getting paid enough and they're not looked after, teachers that are leaving because they're not paid, mass immigration, guards leaving in their droves, right? They can't get a decent pay rise, they can't buy a house, but you know yourself, politicians just got a 5% pay rise, okay? That's the kind of stuff that needs to be addressed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's so obvious, Marie. People can't see past it. Marie, I beg your pardon.
No. And I I'm not. I don't want to. I don't want to talk myself up and saying that I'm not also hearing that when I visit the likes of Esker House in Athlone, and they're waiting 2+ years to get planning permission to even begin to build a safe refuge for those experiencing domestic violence. When you speak to councillors, like I did last Friday in Roscommon at the Northwest Regional Assembly, and you're hearing the impact drugs is having and addiction services are having, and the lack of that support, and just know those listening that I can comfortably speak on behalf of myself and my party to say you don't get in politics to sit back and let these issues develop and grow. There is impact, to your point. We're not moving at the pace we need to. There is stuff changing and moving in terms of access to more third level courses. So when we're looking at social workers or talk therapists, there's an easier access for people to look at those careers.
It just takes a while for them to come through.
Yeah, but then looking at the retention policies too. I mean, we need to pay people an adequate wage so that they can live in a country that is on paper and in reality developed, and we're certainly not. We certainly need to be doing more of that.
Yeah,
because ultimately, to your point and why we're here today, it's often disproportionately impacting women and children when we don't get this right.
I also think sometimes, and it's probably not the case because there might be an abundance of these professionals in other country, but whilst we have people that emigrate from here to do work elsewhere in richer countries, we are drawing resources from often poorer countries, and I hope we aren't leaving a gap behind.
No, but I think
doing so.
Look to the point of, I spoke to the Polish ambassador designated to Ireland quite recently, because about 120,000 Polish communities call Ireland their home, and that was derived from sadly the financial crisis. But we have benefited and felt that impact of that Polish community and multiple other communities that are building the country. And I think I must say, you asked what we're doing and what can be done in terms of budget spend. This is where I feel the EU can and has stepped in. So, like I mentioned, the Domestic Violence Day, which we're acknowledging today, the impact that has on funding for Women's Aid to do more research. We need to know the data in order to fully fund and not have this conversation in a year's time to say more women has experienced domestic violence than they did previously.
Make sure the money's going in the right
into
places as well, of course.
Absolutely.
Just to mention Lifeline Inishowen, another amazing organisation which we often mention on the show and support fully. They do amazing work and some amazing people working behind the scenes there as well. Lifeline Inishowen are hosting a coffee morning in Wesley Hall, Carndonagh for Go Purple Day with An Garda Síochána Buncrana. That starts at 2 p.m, so well done to everyone involved in that. Caller says, I think domestic violence education should be taught in primary schools. Children need to be taught from a very early age that violence in the home is not normal, but sometimes that's complicated too, because sometimes those children are being raised in homes.
To the text that just come in around language, I think one of the and again speaking with Marie at Donegal Domestic Violence Services and multiple others, ask the question. If you see something, report to the guards. call it out in a safe space if
Yeah,
it
of
is
course,
a safe
yeah.
space, and then we're always on this lifelong journey. You're never going to have all the information at their fingertips for the conversation that needs to happen, but ignoring it is not going to keep anybody safer. So we need to make sure this awareness is growing, and not just on days like today where Go Purple, but every day.
All right. Last couple of minutes, I think you recognise, or we all recognise, that we'd love to see a bit of positive discrimination here in the Northwest, right? We want a railway, we want better roads, whatever is required, more investment. How do we achieve that? Are there avenues in Europe that we could be pursuing to try and? I mean, a lot has happened actually. You know, let's talk about some of the positives now. I think connections to the capital have improved. From South Donegal anyway, and I'm going to be selfish because that's where I live, right? Yeah. Broadband. Now we are seeing a lot of broadband in rural areas. A lot of people able to get it. You know what I mean? We're not there yet, but things are improving. So there are areas in the Northwest.
Billions spent in terms of
that is working, right? So recognising that, okay. But do you feel that there are funding avenues or stuff that we could be pursuing to improve things?
Yeah, the benefit of us and our relationship with the European Union is twofold in my eyes. One, direct funding, and a lot what the Northwest Regional Assembly do, and the councillors right across the political spectrum too, are working together. And I think that better connectivity of what one country in the EU is doing really, really well, how can we partner with them and then co-fund? I think what would be very successful when we look at education and trying to build up our rural communities is the fact that Minister Simon Harris, what I would hope and what I'm putting pressure on, would appoint ATU to be the holder of the new veterinary school. I think that would create a huge impact us here across the region. I don't think rail is at the point at where it should be. So when we look at air, of course, with Donegal Airport, when we look at some bus services, of course, that's positive. But I think rail is really, really important. When you look at the fact that other EU areas and regions are far ahead of us on that. So I think there's definitely funding, and I know there's definitely funding streams in there. And then diversification, and what it means is communities growing and scaling, welcoming new communities in. What other business models can we get into? And I say that from a farming background, a fishery background. What other areas? This agri-tourism, we've the Wild Atlantic Way. There's so much positivity that this region has to offer, and it's a case of getting that message out and being very, very structured and working together on funding streams.
What do you think?
There is money there.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'd say there is money there, and it shouldn't just be national governments applying. This is where we need to lift the red tape for community groups also to work together across the region and apply for that EU funding too.
All right, or even Derry and Donegal in that city sort of status. Okay, I get you.
You see with the Three Sisters down in southeast, there's no reason why we can't do that across this region, working with over the border counties.
What do you think of talk of potentially two rural Ireland parties representing Ireland? I think it plays into Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil's hands, to be honest with you, because I think it splits I think it actually kind of splits maybe because I think he's got a very loyal following. Lots of people listening to us they might have their frustrations, right? But they'll still back you when the time comes. I think really the more parties there are, and I'm not in any way saying it shouldn't happen, I think it actually doesn't have the effect maybe they want it to have. It's like running single issue candidates on issues that the opposition is saying that they are in favour of. You can see the complication. But what do you think of?
Yeah, well, I can say this from my own experience. There was, when I first started looking to get involved in politics, absolutely you could have joined any political party or ran as an independent. But actually, for me, it came down to the fundamental change will happen at a decision-making table, which in my eyes was Fine Gael. And if you're at the table, then your voice is getting heard, and you're able to speak with decision makers at a speedier pace, and making sure that direct communications happen from your constituency to the cabinet table. So for me, democracy looks very different on very different people, and if there is multiple parties developing, then that is the wish of the people. I would just hope that we as a Fine Gael party, and I'm running an event with Fine Gael here on the 19th of May in Letterkenny that is opening up and trying to encourage more women and other groups to ask questions in a really safe space about what the party's doing, what we could be doing more of, and trying to break that barrier that we are a party of people who want to represent communities and deal with issues all that we've discussed this morning. So like I say, democracy looks different on many different people. I wish them well, but I would hope that we as a party continue to attract and open the door for people who are looking to...
Do you like the direction of your party at the moment? Are you any frustrations? Because, you'll have heard some of the comments from your party leader on different issues. I think yesterday we had Micheál Martin sort of dragging Russia into, I don't know if you're familiar with that story, maybe you were travelling there on the ditch suggesting sort of, Russia this and Russia that. And
I mean,
do you like the way I asked you this question before? Actually, I did. Do you like the way national politics? Do you like the direction of your party in a political way? Because you speak right exactly how I think everyone would like every party to be. But are you actually seeing that in reality?
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen. Do I want to be speaking to you about mental health services or the lack of them this time next year? Absolutely not. No. I fundamentally believe. We have a party leader in Leo Varadkar and many other senior cabinet members like Helen McEntee, who's doing phenomenal work in the Justice Department and has done so since her tenure started. Do I feel social contract and social policy? And what I mean by that for listeners, it's mental health services, it's equality for not some but all. It's if you want to live in Donegal in a safe house, in a safe community, then you are deserving of that. Do I want to see more of those issues picked up and actually moved? Absolutely. But for me, this party will do that, and we just need to keep the pressure on. So that for me is really, really important that we continue that drive. But there's always homework to do, and there's always stuff that needs to get done. And I wouldn't take from that. I'm not here to say we're not doing enough. I think we could be doing a hell of a lot more, but we're certainly moving in the right direction that I like us to be in.
All right, Maria Walsh, Fine Gael MEP for Midlands North West. Thanks for calling in. Appreciate it, and giving us an opportunity actually to talk more about Go Purple Day, which I think was a great function of the piece as well. Have a lovely day. Back with more after the break.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook and at highlandradio.com. The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, offering low rate holiday loans with fast approval. Apply online at letterkennycu.ie or in office today.
Get the Irish Daily Star today for your free 12-page Punchestown Festival pullout with all the top tipsters in our stable ready to get you first past the post all week. The Irish Daily Star. Number 1 for racing, number 1 for you.
A public interest message from Donegal County Council. Donegal County Council's Cultural Division launches the Donegal Baltina Arts Festival 2023. The Baltina Festival is Ireland's national arts and creativity festival for older people. It will be celebrated throughout the month of May in libraries, day centres and cultural venues throughout Donegal. Featured events include craft and writing workshops, talks, music, dance, theatre and much more. So why not download the festival brochure at donegallibrary.ie, or for further details contact us at 074 917 5384. Donegal County Council, supporting culture, creativity and the arts.
House to Home Bridge End, Donegal. Our modest front door opens onto 2 floors of Irish-made furniture, suites, beds, mattresses, dining and occasional furniture. Step into our showroom and see how we can transform your house into a home. House to Home furniture, flooring, slide ropes and interiors, Bridge End, Donegal.
Forward Emphasis International, based in Mallinhead and Belfast, are actively recruiting for customer service advisors and insurance claims processors with both in-office and hybrid opportunities available. Fully funded insurance and financial services qualifications delivering attractive career path opportunities are available. Please visit their website forwardemphasis.ie and apply via their careers page.
The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, offering low-rate car loans with fast approval. Apply online at letterkennycu.ie or in office today.
Mockra Demand Farm Transfer Scheme. For more in your Farmer's Journal, here's Paul Mooney.
Young farmers call on Taoiseach to incentivise farm succession plans. Brazilian wood chip ships 7,000 kilometres to be burned in County Offaly. Michael Fitzmaurice outlines his plans for a farming and rural party. Land rental prices predicted to jump 14%. Factories take record numbers of feedlot cattle. Plus, in our farm succession series, we look at the pros and cons of prenuptial agreements.
All in this week's Irish Farmer's Journal, on sale now.
the Reverend Jim Lamont presents an evening of music and song in Angrillan Theatre, Letterkenny on Friday 9th of June at 8 p.m. with UP and Maria Doherty, Diane and Iona Holt, Diane Leckie, Andrea Long, Amy Meehan and the Regent Quartet. Tickets €15 on sale now from the theatre box office. Proceeds in aid of the Donegal Hospice. An evening of music, stories and a Donegal farewell at Angrillan Theatre, Letterkenny on Friday 9th of June.
The CFC Interior stock disposal sale ends Bank Holiday Monday. Due to overstock, an incredible £1.5 million worth of stock must go. Don't miss our highest ever discount sale on selected ranges across all departments. The stock disposal sale at CFC Interiors. Sale ends Bank Holiday Monday.
Highland Radio weather updates with Ireland West Airport. Discover Edinburgh this summer with Ryanair's 3 times weekly service. Stunning architecture, endless winding streets and an awe-inspiring castle. Ireland West Airport. Don't just take off, take it easy.
Okay, becoming increasingly sunny with scattered showers today. Highest temperatures of 14 or 15 degrees in light westerly or variable breezes. Brian McDade joins us on the programme now. Brian, thanks so much for taking the call today.
You're very welcome. Thank you for talking to me.
No, it's good to have you on the programme. You and your family were living in Sudan, and obviously, because of events over there, you were able to get out and home. Before we get into that, what were you doing in Sudan? What was life like for you there, Brian? How long have you been there?
I've been there since 2007. And yeah, I mean, for a number of years, life was relatively normal. I mean, it's a culture shock. It's a completely different continent, and you know, many of the conveniences that you're used to aren't there, or certainly very different forms. So you adjust. But yeah, I mean, we were bobbing along nicely for a number of years, and then there were a few events that I suppose that started changing that, and obviously most recently, what has happened has just, completely turned our worlds upside down.
What was life in Khartoum like up until recently? Does it feel like a safe area? Is it rural? Is it urban? Brian, what is it like?
Well, we were in Khartoum, and you know, it's a big African capital city. It's quite spread out, low rise. I worked in an international school. I was a primary school teacher, still am until the end of the year, in an international school. And it was at one point, you know, a thriving international community. Things did start changing. The last 5 years, for example, have been a little bit topsy-turvy. There was long-standing dictator. He was ousted in revolution in 2019. And since then, there's been a kind of uneasy peace of a sort. There was an uneasy alliance between military and civilian and an interim government. And then there was a coup. And at that point, I mean, obviously the military took charge, where the two the leaders of the warring parties right now, Hemeti and Burhan, they were working in, like I say, a fairly uneasy partnership, and various issues led to tensions between them. There was still plenty of cautious optimism that they could reach some kind of agreement, and it was all about, it centered on the rapid support forces and how they would be absorbed into the Sudan Armed Forces, the regular army. And I guess the pathway to civilian rule, it's always been problematic in terms of the mechanics of it and how exactly that would unfold. So
yeah,
that's where a lot of the tension has come from.
The complexities of that's going to perhaps leave it a very long time before there is some sort of stability, but we might get to that. When did of things get to the point where you were like, right, okay, I'm aware of what's going on, but I feel somewhat safe? When did things start to get to the point where you were thinking, we might have to make a move here?
It all happened very quickly. 15th of April, I got a message through during the days of the revolution, and then after that, we created a WhatsApp group from our school just to advise each other of any potential trouble or hazards or risks that might occur during the day, be it demonstrations that might be I don't know, handled somewhat robustly, so to speak. Anything that might have disrupted our day. And I got a message through on that WhatsApp group telling me to stay at home, which is quite a direct a message they received, a direct order, and quite alarming. And then another one that basically said, yeah, I mean, things are unstable. And then shortly thereafter, we started hearing some shelling, and then it just intensified after that. We moved to our basement, lucky to have a basement, quite frankly, and stayed there for the duration of the week. And then a ceasefire, after ceasefire being announced and repeatedly broken during the week, we felt, okay, well, this is neither of these sides is willing to give an inch here, and based with and also backed up by the strong language that was being used by both of them, that neither of them would capitulate. They're speaking in very strong terms.
Yeah.
War rhetoric, obviously. And then we got to the stage where we thought this could very quickly, we could get sucked into this. We're not in the epicenter per se, but we're very, very close to some of the strategic targets. So, it was getting very dangerous. A number of relatives and people I know have had stray bullets, find their way into their homes. And that's how a lot of people were killed,
Brian, in terms of your safety there, now obviously we're at the point now where you couldn't really stay there and protect yourself and your family, but would the danger of being caught up in it, or maybe being targeted? I don't know how either side or both sides might see people from Ireland or England or wherever they might be in the wider scale of things. So would it be a case of getting caught up in the crossfire, metaphorically speaking, or might you be seen as a target by either of the parties?
Possibly a bit of both, actually. Initially, the greater risk is being caught while there's fighting actively continuing, and that obviously manifests itself in many ways. But while there are gun battles, exchanges of gunfire, it is very likely that you could get caught in the crossfire. And like I said, stray bullets is how a lot of people have lost their lives. In terms of being targeted or certainly, being targeted as a foreigner, quite possibly. I mean, I think there was frustration. There was an agency, UN agency that was, I'm not sure created, but certainly brought in to oversee a transition to democracy there. But that was seen by a lot of the old sort of hardliners as foreign meddling. So, that can very easily grow to a point where you do find yourself a target, or certainly not feeling particularly welcome. So I was very self-conscious of that as well. But for me, first and foremost, it was the need to get out was basically driven by the growing danger of being there.
For sure. And I think anyone in the same position would do the same thing. So in terms of then how you get out, because I presume even with some external contact, you are isolated in a city, in a basement, and you have to figure out, well, how do I get us all to safety? So what was the plan, and then how did you end up getting out?
The plan how it happened, we registered, as EU, Irish passport holders, Irish citizens, we were advised to register with the Irish Embassy in Nairobi. We don't have...
Hello, can you hear me, Brian?
Yes, sorry, I thought I lost you for a second.
No.
We don't have an embassy in Khartoum, so the closest is Kenya, and they obviously take care of citizens in neighbouring countries. So we registered with them, and then we were in regular contact with them. And right up until Saturday evening, the advice was to stay at home. There was no evacuation plan as such. But then on Sunday morning, everything changed very, very quickly. And I got word that that the evacuation plans were in place. We got information through. Someone contacted me to say that I should go to the Spanish ambassador, who very, very handily enough is a neighbour of mine. So I was able to go there quickly, and then quickly thereafter, information coming, okay, as an Irish citizen, you can go to the French embassy. And in actual fact, every day I've been getting updates through consular services from Nairobi advising me of other evacuations that are taking place, and obviously my eligibility as an EU citizen. What has changed is whenever we made the move, we didn't have to drive to the airfield. You know, the evacuations are being the planes are taken off from an airfield.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the civilian airport is completely inaccessible, and I don't know what sort of damage has been done there. So it's taken place from an airfield north of Khartoum. We went in convoy, and now that things have changed, people are being asked to make their own way there, and that itself is quite a perilous journey, quite frankly. It was pretty tense, and I can't imagine doing that in my own vehicle.
Yeah, finally, Brian, we're delighted you're home. Of course, much of the focus has been, and probably will continue to be, getting the likes of yourselves and others out. But we've spoken to Sudanese people in the past who are concerned about the direction of the country, and I suppose there's going to be an awful lot of people left behind already, in poverty and hunger and what have you. And I suspect it'll fall off the news cycle once, the Westerners are out. How does that make you feel? Because I presume there's a connection there, there's an affinity now with Sudan. I don't want to put words or emotions into you, but I suspect there is. But it'll slip off the news agenda, and what the regular people are left there with, it's incredibly sad.
It's heartbreaking, and I think it is worth pointing out. Just to add to what you've said, we do have connections there. And I'm reading at stories where family members, particularly the doctors. There's a very strong medical, connection within the medicine community. There are a lot of Sudanese doctors here who went to celebrate Eid, got caught up in it, and they're able to come because they're Irish citizens, but their families aren't. So it puts them in an awful position and a dreadful choice. Who wants to ever make a choice like that? So, you have those heartbreaking family stories, but then, like you said, whenever people are evacuated, and not everyone is as fortunate to be able to flee, you have small business owners, your rickshaw drivers, your taxi drivers, they don't have the choices. They don't have that option. So it's heartbreaking, and I just hope that it does stay relevant because it is current, and it doesn't very quickly become old news and forgotten. But it needs to be relevant because it is an unfolding humanitarian crisis, if nothing else, and certainly more so than even when the fighting stops. There's still going to be the aftermath, which is picking up the pieces, and normal people, regular people, will have to do that as they usually do.
Yeah, and finally, in the last 30 seconds or a minute, Brian, I mean, as I say, this is going to take a long time to resolve. We hope it wasn't the case. You've been there a long time now, and now you've had to pivot back here. Have you been able to process all of that yet? Because this is an unforced, huge change in your and your family's life.
It's massive. I mean, we had to pack up 16 years of life in a backpack. So, I know those material considerations, all the property and that you accumulate over a certain amount of time. But I haven't had time to process it now, and I think, I just need to sit and stare at a wall for a couple of days and think about the kind of realities that have changed dramatically. And I don't know what we can do to recover. It's going to take a while, and there's going to be a lot of things, a lot of considerations that have to be made. And I mean, my wife is Sudanese Irish. Her father studied in Trinity many years ago. That's his initial connection with Ireland, and obviously there's been that connection ever since, and significant connections there. So it's a much bigger picture than just myself and my immediate family.
All right.
And there's a lot to think about, so it's going to take time.
Well, Brian, thanks for giving us an insight and an understanding, and I appreciate it, and best wishes to you and your family, and thinking on those that you're thinking on having not left behind, but they remain there. Brian, thanks for your time.
Thank you for having me on.
Bye-bye. Brian McDade there.
The 9 till Noon Show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, with monster loans available up to €60,000 for all occasions. Visit letterkennycu.ie.
The
The fishermen working the seas off Ireland bring us a real bounty every day. Like Irish crab meat, low in fat and brim full of protein, omega-3 and essential vitamins and minerals. For lunch or dinner, Irish crab meat is a delicious shellfish you can buy cooked and ready to go in your supermarket or fishmongers. For great recipes online, like crab pasta with cherry tomatoes and basil, visit boardbia.ie/crab and make everyday meals amazing.
Are you ready for the big show coming to town? Then mark your calendars for the Balmoral Show, sponsored by Ulster Bank. Join farmers, foodies and families for 4 fun-filled days in the Icon Exhibition Centre, Lisburn. Get up close with the animals, explore the latest technology and sample delicious local food and drink. Don't miss out on the agricultural event of the year. Book your tickets now for the Balmoral Show from the 10th to the 13th of May at balmoralshow.co.uk. See you at the show.
McGinley's Furniture have a huge spring sale now on. It includes selected suites, beds, mattresses, living room and dining room furniture. Also savings on occasional furniture, including lamps, pictures and mirrors. With up to 40% off. It's one furniture sale you don't want to miss. That's on right now at McGinley's Furniture, Portlink Business Park, Port Road, Letterkenny. See mcginleysfurniture.com.
Mockra Demand Farm Transfer Scheme. For more in your Farmer's Journal, here's Paul Mooney.
Young farmers call on Taoiseach to incentivise farm succession plans. Brazilian wood chip ships 7,000 kilometres to be burned in County Offaly. Michael Fitzmaurice outlines his plans for a farming and rural party. Land rental prices predicted to jump 14%. Factories take record numbers of feedlot cattle. Plus, in our farm succession series, we look at the pros and cons of prenuptial agreements.
All in this week's Irish Farmer's Journal, on sale now.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook and at highlandradio.com.
All right, Michael and Fionnuala about to join us, but first let's get a news update at 11 o'clock and it's good morning to Donald Kavanagh.
Thank you, Greg. Good morning. A Strabane priest says the hearts of people in the town are broken following the deaths of 3 family members in a crash outside Auchnacloy yesterday. Dan McCain, his sister Christine Duffy and their aunt Julie McSorley, all from the head of the town in Strabane, lost their lives after a minibus and truck collided on Tullyvar Road at around 7:30. 4 other family members were injured in the crash as they were travelling home. They'd been attending a funeral in England. 2 have since been discharged from hospital. Barnardo's wants local authorities to give families facing eviction more certainty when securing emergency accommodation. The charity is highlighting the alarming number of children who are homeless in Ireland. That figure currently stands at roughly 3,000. A new HSE COVID booster campaign begins today. Those over 70, people with weak immune systems and care home residents are among those eligible for a top-up. It'll be available from participating GPs, pharmacists and local vaccination centres. Ukrainian officials say 12 people have been killed, including a 2-year-old girl, after Russia fired more than 20 cruise missiles at Kyiv and other parts of the country. Most of the deaths are said to have happened when 2 missiles hit an apartment building in Uman. Russia denies its military targets civilians. The Donegal-based road safety organisation Park is urging the Road Safety Authority to address delays in having driving disqualifications in Great Britain and Northern Ireland recognised in the Republic. Figures released to Park recently show that so far this year there have been 40 cases before the courts. Of those, 5 have been affirmed, 24 have proceedings still underway, and in 8 cases the disqualification expired before the proceedings ended. And today is Go Purple Day, raising awareness about domestic abuse and the local domestic abuse support services. The initiative was first organised in 2020 to help strengthen community partnerships between domestic abuse services and An Garda Síochána. It's now a national day of awareness about domestic abuse. Events are taking place in Garda stations and women's centres in Donegal and further afield. And they're the main headlines. Back with headlines again at 12 noon.
Thank you very much, Donald.
On Post Money Mate is a current account that gives kids the power. So what money power do they want? The power to get paid for their chores? Come on, nearly there, Connor.
Oh, it's so unfair.
Relax, your mom's paying you with jobs on the app. Or to be a super saver with savings jars.
Hold on, can I have the power to keep an eye on all of this?
You can, with the current account for kids that's just €2 per month, plus your first 3 months free. Search On Puss MoneyMate or get the On Puss Money app. T's and C's apply. See onpussmoney.com/moneymate. Available for children aged 7 to 15 and a half years. Transaction fees apply. After 3 months, a monthly fee applies. On Puss is authorised by the Minister for Finance to provide payment services and is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland in the provision of such services.
Okay, it is that time of the week again. It's the last hour of the show where we park all the serious stuff. Well, some of this gets serious, actually. We don't set it out to be that we are just frivolous idiots. Sometimes if a serious topic needs to be discussed, we'll do that too. But we try and skirt around it. That's entertainment, where half of you switch on and another half of you switch off. Another half of you that don't listen to anything else on the 9 till Noon show switches on. But listen, it's good to have you all on board, and we want you involved in the conversation. Okay, our guests, as always, are Fionnuala Rabbit. Good morning, Fionnuala.
Morning.
Great to have you with us, and Michael Leddy. Hi, Michael.
Hello.
You're getting very clever now, Michael. I've noticed, because your list comprises only now of the 2 things that you want to speak of. Nothing else.
Plus, I'm probably watching a little less of the stuff that'll be of interest to the listeners.
How do you know?
Well, because I'm watching old things.
Well, that's okay. We don't need you to pre-filter what's going on.
All right, yeah, well.
But don't put any old stuff down on your list.
Like Doctor Who, because you love talking about Doctor Who.
Oh, I don't mind.
Has it started with the new guy?
No.
Oh, I was wondering. I see lots of advertising for it. I've never watched Doctor Who. But
you should.
You've never watched Doctor Who at all?
No, never. I've never ever seen it.
Neither. Never seen
I've never seen it.
I don't know. I think Greg might be a lost cause.
Yeah.
But Fionnuala, it's in your wheelhouse.
I know. I've always thought that.
But can I say one thing? When I was younger, it was on. And I hated it. Now, I never watched it, but the noises and the telephone box appearing and disappearing, and the fact that you could go into this small space and it was big inside, it made my head
messed
hurt.
with your head.
It just made my head hurt.
When you mention the sounds, there's a friend of mine who cannot watch Law and Order. And the reason he can't watch Law and Order is the dun-dun. He just is like, I can never get past the opening. The minute that comes on, and this is for years, immediately changes the channel.
I think you two are not normal.
Fair enough.
But I think I'm normal. In other words, I think I'm like our listeners. I don't think you are either.
I totally I'm okay with the first statement, but what about you, Fionnuala? Do you think Greg is?
I'm still processing.
Do you think Greg is?
Well, you like universes and stuff, right? Okay, and lots of listeners
only
do.
in certain
but
circumstances.
I just want to watch something on Netflix.
So you're saying the average listener out there just watches darts and snooker. That's the average listener. That's the normal listener.
Anyway, I said that in absolute jest. I watched this week the Night Watchman, the Night
Agent.
The Netflix
Agent, the Night Agent.
Yes, I'm about to watch that.
It's brilliant. It's a great show.
It got great reviews.
It's kind of predictable and stuff.
It's an actiony thing.
Yeah. But it's just a good old yarn, isn't it? You know?
Okay.
Like, it's just a good show.
That's one of the biggest hits Netflix has had.
Has it? Is
yes.
it? Sorry, yeah. I can see it. And The Diplomat too, that's next. That seems to be doing
Oh,
really
my God. Have you been reading my diary?
No.
There are 2 shows I'm going to sample now.
But they're the only shows that Netflix has really put out.
It's so true.
So,
spot on. They are the only
they've gone
regular
very bad.
shows that have a storyline. But no, listen, this guy... He at the beginning, right at the beginning, there is a bomb in a metro. He seems to be a hero. He stops it. He's taken into the White House to answer a telephone downstairs. Someone rings up and they provide an emergency code and blah, 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 right?
Yes.
I'm not good at this, like you guys.
No,
I might
that's
give spoilers.
No, but that's...
and it just goes on for 10 episodes and it's kind of exciting at times.
It's an action-y
kind of thing. You know what's coming next. And it's... it's kind of like Jack Ryan or something.
Yes, that's why I want to watch it.
That's exactly what came into my head with it, and I was like, is this going to be a poor man's Jack Ryan?
Yeah, no, it's not. It's a rich man's Jack Ryan.
Ooh.
But
Okay.
I don't think the lead character, the lead guy in it, I don't know if he's not very commanding, but but other than that, it's nice. I like it. It's nice. Bit of
It's
a love
either...
story.
I think that's the show. Now, because I haven't watched it yet, but I think it's Sean Ryan might be behind that show. He's either that or The Diplomat. Yeah. He's the guy who did The Shield years ago, which was an excellent show. And I think he's the guy who also does which I don't watch. It's been going about 6 seasons now. SWAT. So he's a guy who can do smart action.
It's a solid 8, and we'll return to it.
You wouldn't use that phrase to describe SWAT.
Oh, I see. I haven't seen it
and
yet.
David Brands is in it, and normally I just could sit watching him for hours.
We'll return to it when one of you watch it and talk as well and talk about it properly. But of course, if someone's looking for something for the weekend, it's a good one, and you burn through it. It's one of those ones that you watch 2 or 3 episodes of.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah,
and it's not complicated, and it's a perfectly fine beginning, middle, and end.
So a normal person like you, Greg, would enjoy it.
Because I'm not good at following stuff and remember. I couldn't tell you the characters' names. Is that bad that I could watch 10 episodes and I know the girl's called Rose outside of that?
In fairness, that's very much what an average person is. In fairness, joking aside, a normal person would say, oh, there's a guy and he's a doctor, and then there's another guy and he's got a gun.
Maybe Fanula is normal.
I never remember anybody's name.
He can do the age.
I'm Michael.
I know.
I'm Michael.
I know.
How you doing?
I
never.
How you doing? Good to meet you.
I never remember anybody's
I've forgotten.
I know. Well, it's not very memorable. I don't remember much.
Twisted.
Through the heart. Through the heart.
Yeah, I'm just not good at names. It's like my
I'm not
my
very
thing.
good.
And I like my conversations to be like charades. Just like the guy that used to be with the guy that hung out that was in the movie.
But I've stopped.
That was about.
He's the guy with the hair.
Yeah,
but
that
I've
was
stopped trying to do things now because then I would go, you know him. He was in that show with the fella. You know the fella with the.
Yeah, I love
and
it.
the 7 degrees of separation here is, you know him, who, him, them, her.
Yeah, and eventually I get there.
He's married to your one.
Yeah, exactly. That's perfect. It's exactly.
We
the way I
finished
like to
off
live my life.
kind of rushed a bit towards the end, the Boston Strangler, which I think is actually another good show that people might want to fit into their weekend schedule. It's on Disney Plus. We, as I say, we were kind of.
Well, no, exactly. We both had seen it last week, and just we were talking about it was that it's actually quite a good movie, and one that I assumed must have been old because Keira Knightley's in it.
Yep.
And didn't realise that apparently it's just been released.
No
and was
promos,
just done.
no. Now it's popped up all over my Facebook.
Yeah,
but
I'd say people, and I'd say this kind of word of mouth. Maybe people are watching it, but it's actually another one of these, which is a story that you knew the story, but you didn't actually know this part of it.
Exactly, yeah.
Which I have to say, I'm really finding that very interesting when they're finding all these kind of things that are in the zeitgeist and yet you don't really know the background of it. And this in particular is interesting, I suppose, for me. It's about female journalists. And it's about the role that 2 female journalists had in the whole Boston Strangler story. So it's less about the crime and more about the individuals that were looking into it. And it turns out, because I suppose just living your life and tipping away, you automatically assume the police that did all the investigating and everything. And this gives you an insight into actually what happened behind it and how things got mashed
It had
together.
enough of the cat and mousey stuff for me as well, too. That,
Yeah.
you know how we talked about other shows where they try and switch the focus and it loses out on some of the stuff you might find interesting. I felt it told the story of what happened as well as their story in exposing it or getting to the solution, if that makes sense.
No, I
Did
thought
you
so
find
too.
that?
I really enjoyed the pace of it until maybe the end. Just at the end, I thought they kind of sped things up a bit, and I went, "What? Okay." And I don't want to be talking any more about it because that would sort of give away the whole premise of the thing. But just, I think it's well worth a watch. It very much reminded me of which now, of course, I can't think of the name of the movie. What was the movie about the African American women that had been working for NASA?
Yeah,
It has that sort of cannot come into my head. Anyways, it has that sort of a feel. If anybody has seen that movie, it has that similar type of feel. These were women that were working in fields that weren't necessarily known for having strong women or doing crime
and it's
doing
not
different things
screaming
like
it
that.
from the rafters either, even as, you know, it doesn't feel like, I think it's educational, but it doesn't feel like it's it doesn't feel like it's trying to make a point or something.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, no, it's not.
It's not exactly that.
No, it's not. It's very
it
much
highlights it, but it's not jamming it down
but
your
it's
throat.
no, it's more kind of like, no, this is just the way that it was.
Exactly.
And there's no, you know, there's different bits of sexism and stuff like that in it, and it's never kind of like, oh, don't be saying that. It's very much, this is just the facts of the situation that was at that time. This is the way it went on, things that went on. This is the way things happened and that kind of thing, and the way people spoke. It doesn't really, it's not apologizing for the way it was during that time. It's just saying this is what it was.
Could it have been a 4-parter? because you talked about it being rushed at the end, and we sometimes
I
the
think it could
criticism
have
is
been
they
a
try
lovely
and
four-parter, actually.
sometimes they try and drag a story out, but I think this is a story actually they could have got.
They could have gotten a little bit more. I think, because they didn't really go much into the crime or the different people that were accused along the way.
And the other female
like
reporter's character could have been teased out a bit more in an episode.
Yeah, there was a few little teases to what her home life and different things like that were in it, but they didn't do it. So it probably could have been a bit longer. And I have to say, I did think that the last 15, 20 minutes, they kind of were coming at a lovely pace. And then all of a sudden you were kind of like,
bang, 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 bang. Yeah.
Did I miss something there?
Yeah, I get you.
That was the only thing about it. But
That
look,
could be
it's an
post-production,
enjoyable
though.
movie. Absolutely. They could have had all that stuff in this way they decided to cut it.
Yep.
But it is an enjoyable movie. It's an interesting story to sit down and it's definitely, as I said, most people have heard the words put together, the Boston Strangler, have a vague notion of what that may or may not mean. This will kind of open up your mind.
And I think you're the same as
me.
me. It kind of was a wee treat because you stumble across and go, oh, right, didn't know about this. And you know when you're pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm not a huge fan of Ms. Knightley.
Yeah,
I find her a bit wishy.
I'm kind of the same.
But I thought she was very good.
Yeah.
I thought
What has she ever...
She loves me.
What has she... And all normal people. What has she done that's the thing you say, oh, she was great in...
She's been Keira Knightley in lots of things.
In lots of... That's actually...
Well, I mean, like, Atonement was the one, wasn't it, that kind of brought her to the fore.
Was she in
then
that
was in
Knight's Tale? Was that her? Was that
and she was in the... No, she was in the Pirates of the Caribbean, wasn't she?
Oh, God, they were awful, those movies.
I actually liked her in those ones now.
Yeah, well...
But they weren't, like, they were movies for what they were. But
They
she was
were,
in those, and then she was in...
Advertisements for the ride, for the amusement park.
She upset me deeply on a personal level because she was in Pride and Prejudice and it was ridiculous.
She upset you?
Stop it, they were holding hands and kissing. In Pride and Prejudice!
Good
Outrageous.
Lord.
Outrageous.
I always got the impression to me that she was and this is no way disrespectful, kind of a budget Natalie Portman. If you know what I mean. I always confused the two of them, and I really liked Natalie Portman. I think Black Swan's a fantastic film if you haven't seen it recently.
I like Natalie Portman.
I just thought that
That's
she...
interesting.
Interesting, yeah.
That's just my take on
She's
it.
the English version of it.
Yeah, but just anyway. So you're giving it an 8. I'm
I
guessing.
did. I
enjoyed
enjoyed it. It was a story that I didn't know before. After watching it, we all have thoughts on how we would have done it, but it definitely was. It definitely was worth watching. It was a story I didn't know, and it was an interesting story.
All right, okay. Good morning, Greg. Can you say massive good luck to all the ladies taking part in the Donegal Oil Ladies Only Adventure Challenge tomorrow in Garton? It starts at 10 a.m. You're invited to come out and support all the ladies, raising funds for 2 great causes. Thanks, and have a happy holiday weekend, long weekend. I don't say bank holiday weekend anymore. Malin Arnold fundraiser. It's a vintage afternoon tea on Sunday, the 30th of April, between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. in the afternoon, of course. It's in the Wee Hall Culdaff. A selection of sandwiches, scones and baked goods will be served on vintage tea sets alongside tea, coffee and a complimentary cocktail or bubbly upon welcome. I think everyone will have to be drinking the tea with the little finger stuck out by the sounds of things. There's a raffle on the day with lots of prizes to be won. You're invited to grab your friends and get your glad rags on. Prizes for the best dressed on the day. Tickets €20. So get along for sounds like a lovely event for a great cause. Okay, let's take a break and we'll have more from Michael and Fanula after these.
The county's #1 talk show, The 9 till Noon Show on Highland Radio.
The 9 till Noon Show with Letterkenny Credit Union. Simplify your debts with a debt consolidation loan from Letterkenny Credit Union. Call us on 074 910 2126 or apply online via our app or in office today.
Don't know if you know Alison Pat. Late 40s, couple of kids, been together 17 years. Never married, of course, but that's not a problem. Until something happens, and suddenly words like unmarried, inheritance, and substantial tax bill enter the equation. You never need proper estate planning. Until you do. That's why the experienced team at McElhenney & Associates are here to help. Find us online or call 074 917 5989. McElhenney & Associates Solicitors, Stranola.
Preparing for a special occasion? Sorrento Shoes has the finishing touch. Shoes and bags in pastel shades, bling or classic neutrals. Sorrento Shoes. Available in all leading shoe stores.
Brian Murray from Fair City here.
I'm one of the 64,000 people living with dementia in Ireland. This year, I'm proud to support Alzheimer's Tea Day, which is taking place across Ireland on Thursday, May the 4th. Play your part by hosting your own Tea Day event. Register today at teaday.ie. There's something about a cup of tea.
Avril, stop playing with the Bunsen burner. Harry, does he look like he wants a face tattoo? Teaching kids what's right and wrong is important. That's why Bank of Ireland are teaching over 418,000 students in primary and secondary schools the financial literacy skills that will help them get it right in later life. Because your financial well-being is our priority. Register your school today. Search Bank of Ireland Schools. Bank of Ireland. Begin. Bank of Ireland is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Highland Radio time checks with Expressway. Travel route 32 from Letterkenny to Dublin. Expressway, bringing you the time at
19 minutes past 11. Right, Michael, Perry Mason.
Yes.
Is this the second series
Second
we're talking
season,
about here?
yeah. Starts next week.
I can't remember if I enjoyed...
It's a long time.
Yeah.
It's 3 years.
I don't think I did. I
3
think
years.
It's Matthew Rhys, isn't it?
Yeah, Matthew Rhys.
I liked him in The Americans, right? But I just don't really...
You may not have,
It's
yeah.
just the same in everything. I know we say that an awful lot about things, but You loved the first series.
I loved the first one, yeah. 3 years since that first season, 2020. It was from the producers, or some of the producers, of Friday Night Lights. And I'm always raving about Friday Night Lights. That's such a great show, one of the all-time greats. I loved that first 8-episode season. Tatiana Maslany was in it as an evangelist. I thought it was brilliant. But behind the scenes, there was a change. There was creative differences. And those producers/writers were out. And new writers, producers came on. And the guys who took over did a show called The Nick, which was about a hospital. It was Clive Owen, I think, a few years ago. A grim, grisly sort of show about them sawing off legs and things on, in the early 1900s. Yeah, I know. But a good show. Yeah. So Perry Mason season 2, I've seen it. It starts next week on Sky Atlantic. I think it's Tuesday night at like 2 a.m. and then Wednesday, Thursday at 9 or 10 or something. Critics have embraced the changeover and have embraced and feel that this is a much better version of Perry Mason. I'm not in that camp at all, and I was disappointed by this second season. I thought the case wasn't as interesting. I thought... And I'll tell you about the case in a second. But I missed Tatiana Maslany, and it's not just that I missed her, but I felt they didn't have a guest star in this season that was just so magnetic and dynamic, because I love her. So you would imagine they would go with a similar sort of character, but they didn't. They doubled down on Perry Mason being glum and miserable. And even though he basically won at the end of the first season, mild spoiler for a 3-year-old show, he was still quite depressed about how it all turned out. Now, this story takes place about 6 months later. That's how we're doing. There wasn't enough story, I thought, for the full 8 hours. So what you end up with is a lot of love stories.
That's not what you
Perry Mason, Perry Mason himself has a love story. Della Street has a love story. And particularly, I think, episode 4 was like a weekend and they were away from the case for most of it. And there were scenes where your grandmother would have to look away. You would see some naughty thing. Not too bad, but stuff.
You don't want to see Perry Masons.
Yes. The story itself was very timely in the sense that although it's 90 years ago, it involves a very wealthy man getting murdered, 2 very poor Mexicans who are assumed to be immigrants but were actually born in America, but everyone just assumes they're immigrants. They are on trial for the murder of this man. They have a daytime radio host who is a conservative host who's stirring up hatred amongst the people and is on every day talking about these people coming into our country. So they take elements of now and they put them back. Obviously, I mean, things were like that back in the 1930s as well. Yeah, they were, of course. So they do that element, and they have elements of gender and sexuality and people who are gay and trying to
in a good way, though, because
I wasn't.
That's what I liked about the night agent, because there was none of that stuff.
Yeah, there was none of that stuff.
It didn't try and teach me anything.
Yeah,
didn't try and sort of push an agenda. It was just a show.
Completely agree.
I mean, and I'm open. Feel like, oh, clever.
Yeah,
because that's 90 years ago, but it's still relevant today.
Relevant today. Yeah,
and it's very important.
Yeah.
But that's why I liked about the night agent. It's just a show.
That's why I'll probably enjoy it.
It's grand when things are done as part of a story, but I find sometimes now you find things that are just like tick boxes.
Yeah, of course.
Must have tick, tick, tick.
You can see them storyboarding it, and they say, right, we want to sort of point out the similarities between now and then, so we're going to build a story around that. Do they do that? I wonder, and maybe that's the fault of it.
I think it's. I would imagine. I don't like that tick and box things, but I agree with you. I think they probably think, what social commentary can we put in there, and what can we make? And
don't do it. Just do a show.
Sometimes I'm okay with it, but I didn't. And again, critics have embraced this. It's got 85% from critics and 75% from audiences on Rotten Tomatoes. So I'm definitely not.
75%.
3/4 of people liked it.
Low for top tier show.
Oh yeah.
Do you know when we talk about the top tiers?
90.
What were your best shows of the year or something? So
This
75
won't be,
from the audience is actually a bit meh.
It won't be in the top 20, I agree, for most people that rate these things. I think Rathy Reese is very good. I think the cast are okay, but it missed a Tatiana Maslany-esque guest star. Someone who would really pull you in. And I would cut it from 8 episodes down to 4 and just tell the story.
You get the Weekend Away gone.
Oh, the Weekend Away.
That's the first one.
I don't care if such and such is in love, and if it may or may not work out. I couldn't give a fudge. But the case had some good twists, and it did. I was like, whenever they went back to the case, I was like, oh, okay, how's he going to win? Because this is bad.
That's nearly annoying, though, if the case is actually good and yet they're fluffing around it.
Yeah. And the other thing I say, the ending was very, and I'm not spoiling it in any way, but it was a very realistic ending. Everybody was glum. I was like, God, these people are miserable. But it was like glum. And you're like, that's
what's your marks out of 10 on it then?
7. It was okay.
So you're going with the general audience?
9 was what I would definitely have gone with season 1 because I loved it. This is a little bit above average. To me, a 6 is an average. I thought the case was what I liked here. I couldn't care less about who's in love with whom.
All right, I get you. Hi all, I'd recommend watching The Diplomat on Netflix. A new US ambassador is drafted into the US Embassy in London to crisis manage after an attack on a UK aircraft carrier. Very good watch. Left me looking for more after the season finale, which is everything that you want. And I think a lot of people are already watching it because it's trending 1 on Netflix, but certainly more people are going to be visiting that. Just to mention one more event, Greg, there'll be an event on the shorefront in Buncrana this Sunday. It's at 3 p.m. In support of refugees and asylum seekers and to welcome the newest arrivals to our beautiful town. It'll be a lovely afternoon and everyone, they say, is welcome. Right, okay. Where do you want to go? TV, theatre? What do you want to do next, Fionnuala? The list is yours.
I don't know. I suppose with the bank holiday coming up, it's good.
We don't call it a bank holiday. It's a public holiday because we hate the banks.
Oh, really? I'm on board with the dislike, but I'm not sure why we're changing stuff around.
I'm joking. Go ahead.
No, I saw a couple of movies over the last couple of weeks that people are at home and looking for something that is a little bit kind of actiony, a little bit stuff happening, and both were very enjoyable. So the first one that I saw was on Apple TV, and it's the new, they call it the new Chris Evans, but it should be you say her name, I can never say it.
Anna Darmus?
No. It's her.
She's very attractive.
She's a very attractive lady, and I have to say she is very good in this. Basically what they've done, the movie's called Ghosted. What they've done is they've taken kind of a premise that you've seen before, but they've kind of flipped it a bit on its head. So it's this couple that have met, and one of them thinks it's all going lovely, and then it turns out the other person has a secret life. But they've sort of flipped it all on its head, and it actually just becomes a really just a fun sort of a kind of a romp through. I can't even think of another movie that I'd describe it as, but it's got like humor in it. It's got a lot of kind of crazy action in it. It's sort of has that kind of a James Bondy type of a feel, as in that that's what they're kind of going for / taking the mick out of. There is some very funny, if you watch a lot of TV like I do, people pop up in it just for like 30 seconds. And then, most of them get brutally slaughtered.
Which, funny, you should say that, reminds me of, and we'll continue with that, what I like about it is the critics hated it and the audience loved it. When you talk of people popping up and then brutal things happening, reminds me of my childhood and the Dame Edna Everage show. And my mother used to, the thing that just, and Dad was the same, they wet themselves at it.
Yes.
Charlton Heston would come to the top of the stairs, like A-listers.
Yes. Yeah.
And they'd be waving and they'd come on down, you know what I mean? And next thing, the stairs would turn into a slide, and that would be it.
Yes, brilliant.
I don't know how she got these acts, and then Madge would be. It's Madge, wasn't it?
Madge was there, brilliant.
And did you see the obituary in the Daily Mail?
Yes,
which is hilarious. That
beautiful.
Dame Edna Everage wrote a obituary for Barry Humphries.
Oh, wow.
Talking about how, he rode on her coattails and all this kind of stuff.
I'll have to look that one up.
It's brilliant. Beautifully worded.
Beautiful.
But it was one of those things, and I really don't mean this in any way bad, right? But he was taken into hospital recently because he was sick, but I actually thought he'd already passed. It was one of those cases whereby you find out they're sick and you think, wow, I thought they had passed away.
I know,
and
because
then,
you think he must have been, and I thought he was way older than he was as well.
Yeah.
Because in his own persona, without the makeup, he was a bit shook looking back in the 90s, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was, and I know that was another one that he did, kind of the sort of always the drunken.
Sir Les, yeah.
Yeah, the drunken slovenly person. But no, it was one of those ones where you're just kind of like, oh God. But this week was actually a week in which we lost quite a few names that people would know.
Yep.
So with Barry Humphries, Dame Edna Everage lost her. Jerry Springer passed away yesterday.
That's right. And again, Jerry Springer to me was when you first got your satellite TV.
Yeah.
I remember I got a Freeview box or something, and
I know it's the first time
it was on, and it was always on, and
always
you watch
on.
it. And
it's the first time you said the words Americans are crazy.
Yeah.
You just went, wow.
And then they tried to ruin it then, because it is what it was. And then they started going, oh, it's fake, and they need wrestling licenses. And then it kind of ruined it. I thought it's just let it go and be.
Now, I always like what he always said about it was, he's like, there's 1% of any population is always doing stuff that the other 99% in their wildest dreams couldn't imagine. And he said, and in America, that 1% is millions of people, there's such a massive population.
I remember seeing a great documentary years ago about the making of the Jerry's and the researchers and the people that went on and how they would, as we would think, disgrace themselves, but when they were over they would be up to the producers, did we do okay with that?
There was the celebrity.
And it was the original kind of like becoming celebrities out of it.
And he said in an interview, he was being, I think it was Jeremy Paxman was interviewing, he says, were you sitting here pushing out a narrative every night for rich people and well-off people? He says, this is just a platform for a different type of people. Why should they not be seen? Why should you decide who is seen? And then we're in a situation now where, and we saw the cancellation of the show in England, those shows just could not be made anymore because we are so awake.
Oh, I know. You couldn't. Oh, no, yeah.
You couldn't.
Oh, God, you couldn't do it.
Yeah.
We also lost Len Goodman from Strictly Come Dancing.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Not a show I ever watched.
No.
Was that a sudden passing? Was he on TV recently, or?
Well, he was on the last series of it, as far as I'm aware. But now he was a good age.
But a big shock to fans.
Yeah, it would have been a big job because he's kind of one of those faces that you just saw everywhere, and he did and very statuesque kind of man, I suppose, from his background in dance and that kind of thing. He seemed way younger than he was, the opposite of Barry Humphries. and lastly, then, which most people won't know, but I would say to them, Google him. Dale Meeks was a character that was in Emmerdale for quite a long time, and he passed away suddenly at the weekend. And he was when you look at his picture, you'll be thinking, oh my God, I've seen him in loads of stuff. He's one of those kind of character actors in the UK that you would have seen him playing soldiers in the background of stuff, having maybe the third lead, third or fourth.
Even I recognised him
as friends.
and I don't watch a huge amount of UK stuff,
and he's in a lot of stuff. You'd have seen him in a lot of stuff, so just say people just to Google him and have a look. So it was a week of kind of like nearly every day going, oh no, did they?
Exactly. Okay, thanks for that, Fanula, actually, because it triggers people's memories, and a lot of people, like, it was like the Dame Redder. These people are part of your lives, even though you don't realise it. So not necessarily a major factor, but they're intertwined.
But if you watch something like Dame Edna, we watched it every week.
It evokes
Saturday night. Yeah, that's a big part of your, you watch something every week.
I can't believe you watched that.
Loved it.
Did you not watch the Dame Edna Everage Experience?
Very funny.
Possums?
Very funny.
Occasionally, but it wouldn't have been a thing that we sat down as a...
So cruel to Madge, the loyal servant.
But Humphries was really a great comedian. He was so sharp. Of course I watched it. So funny.
It was actually expressions and silence, not always sharp wit.
Yep. could
Right,
do
okay.
different things.
The
It could-
downturn smile.
Yeah, for sure. All right, exactly. The downturn smile is exactly what I was thinking of. Fanula.
Yeah.
Back from with more from our guests, hardly our guests, Michael and Fanula. After these.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook, and at highlandradio.com. The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union. Digital loans now available. Apply online or via our app today and get your loan transferred directly to your current account.
At Centra, feel good and shop smart with great offers this bank holiday weekend. Like Inspired by Centra breakfast deals selected range any 3 for €6. 7-Up, Club and Pepsi 12-can packs €7 each. And until Monday, Oyster Bay Sauvignon Blanc only €10. Centra, live every day. Enjoy alcohol sensibly.
Connolly's Volkswagen Letterkenny, your only official Volkswagen passenger and commercial vehicle dealer for County Donegal. Pop in to visit our showroom on Canal Road, Letterkenny. Speak to a member of our friendly team and drive away in your dream Volkswagen. Book a test drive on 074 91 22 333 or check out our full new and used range at connellys.ie.
Mockra Demand Farm Transfer Scheme. For more in your Farmer's Journal, here's Paul Mooney.
Young farmers calling Taoiseach to incentivise farm succession plans. Brazilian wood chip ships 7,000 kilometres to be burned in County Offaly. Michael Fitzmaurice outlines his plans for a farming and rural party. Land rental prices predicted to jump 14%. Factories take record numbers of feedlot cattle. Plus, in our farm succession series, we look at the pros and cons of prenuptial agreements.
All in this week's Irish Farmer's Journal, on sale now.
Is the appearance of your staff important to your business? It's the first point of contact for customers when entering your premises. At C&M Embroidery in Letterkenny, they have a huge range of clothing covering all areas of the workplace. It's widely known that customers warm to and trust employees that present themselves well. Have your company name embroidered or printed on all your work uniforms. Contact C&M Embroidery on 07491 28097 and get your staff looking their best.
When spending time at our beaches, rivers and lakes, put water safety first. Safe always supervises children closely. Safe wears a life jacket when boating or angling. Safe swims within your depth and stays within your depth. This is Water Safety Ireland. Better safe than sorry. For advice, visit watersafety.ie. Supported by the Government of Ireland.
And you welcome back to the programme. We're delighted to welcome onto it now the director of a new film, Anne, it's called. It's Kieran Cree. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Kieran, am I?
Yeah, no, it's pretty good, yeah.
Okay, very good.
The trips people up all right.
Yeah, talk to us about this film. And just to let you know, by the way, and I'll remind you towards the end of it, it's being shown at Century Cinemas in Letterkenny starting tonight, and also the cinema in Bundoran as well. So a significant story this to be told, Kieran. Great responsibility in doing so, I presume, but we'll get to that. Outline it for us, please.
Yeah, well, basically, I mean, I'm of an age that I would have remembered when the actual incident happened back in 1984. And then Rosita Boland in 2018, 2 amazing articles in the Irish Times. And unusually for, say, when you're tackling an item like that, such a big issue within the country, you kind of go to macro level. But she went down to the micro level of the actual day of when Anne passed away. And it really was such a strong visual sort of image for me that I felt like, I just have to do this. Because as I said, you're with this 15-year-old girl who's pregnant, full-term pregnant, was walking around the town, and she knew what was coming, and I suppose the fear, the worry, everything that was going on, it must have been just an awful place to be. And I just I put myself in her shoes, and it was probably one of the easiest things I ever wrote, because it just kind of flew out of me.
To capture that emotion, though, and everything that's going along with it, a great challenge.
It is, yeah, and you have to be very careful because it would be quite easy to not do it right. So from the very start, for me, it was always about Anne. Anne was the most important. So I had to decide, how am I going to capture that? So we came up with the scheme, where we did all handheld camera work. We kept the camera very close, either behind or in front of Anne, and we followed her on her day. And then as she interacted with other people, the camera went with those people. So you get a sense of the town, the small town, the people from the 80s, just a sense of the whole thing. So by just keeping it so close and so tight, it kind of brings you into this small little world, very claustrophobic, and hopefully it works.
Yeah, and it has to be shot in a 1984 and written, in a 1984 context too, not modern as well. So, you know, how someone might go through that journey then versus now, there would be an awful lot of similarities, but an awful lot of differences as well. So you have to make it obviously accurate to the time.
Yeah, for sure. Like, you know, I suppose, I mean, the main differences really would be the people.
Mm.
And I mean, like the relationships of people and how they interact together. And obviously, back in the 80s, the relationships between parents, mother and fathers, was probably very different to what it is today. And also the town folk. I mean, like, you know, the way they act, the way they talk, what they do. Like, you know, there are still a lot of similarities, but it is a very different time. And be careful not to look at the film through 2023 eyes in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
There really is no comparison.
It's hard to filter that out sometimes, but I'm sure you've achieved that. And obviously, it's recent history, and I'm sure there are still family or people strongly connected to Anne Lovett. Were they consulted in this process, or is that even possible? Or how do you as filmmakers go around that side of things? I'm sure you want to handle this incredibly sensitively and accurately, but at the same time not cause any unnecessary or undue upset.
I mean, that's always a very high priority in your mind. And we did reach out to the family, but we didn't get any response. And we did have one or two contacts in Granard, but again, the common thing coming back was they weren't really too interested in talking about it. And I suppose I can understand that from their perspective, because obviously they're in the limelight here as a town, and it could be any town. It could be Letterkenny, it could be Boyle, it could be any town in this country that this happened, and I'm sure it did happen in all those towns too. But Granard is kind of associated with it, and you can understand why they would not want to move on maybe at this stage from
it. Yeah, of course, I get that. But that being said, it's an important story, and also one that continues to happen. We hear cases of it. It's still, it's not of the 80s. You know, you hear instances like this still happening. You shot it in Boyle, County Roscommon. Is it a big production? It sounds like it could have been made with a small crew, and sometimes I suppose when you're producing a film, it has to be. How long did that whole element of it take? Was most of the work in post-production, or what was that experience like?
Basically, it's about 40 crew, so it wasn't too big. But we were very lucky in Boyle, like County Council, everybody was so good to us down there. Like, we shut down the town for a good number of days, and they were so accommodating. But we shot it for 12 days, so like 2 6-day weeks. Again, it's just because the low budget film, you're trying to minimise costs as best you can. So 12 days we shot. So then you're talking about, it was probably we finished the film effectively February, March 2022. So that would be, it wasn't too bad, about 8-9 months after we shot it. And then we did quite well in the festival circuit. And our world premiere was in Estonia, in the Tallinn Black Night Film Festival. So we had to hold over the world premiere until November of 2022. So even though it was finished in March, we had to wait till then to get the really good premiere. It's important just to get the film out there. And we found as well, obviously it's great. I mean, when you go to a festival like that and there's a full audience and you do a Q&A afterwards, and it's such a universal story, really, even though it's a small Irish story to us. But I mean, the audience, they ask the right questions. I mean, it is such a universal story of something that can happen in every country.
Yeah, and the more people that see it, the better. I mean, that's why you're in doing what you're doing, and that's why it's good to see it getting its airings from tonight in Century Cinemas in Letterkenny and in the cinema in Bundoran as well. And in terms of sort of a network or streaming platform for it, Kieran, has that been secured? Is that ongoing, or is it even a goal of yours?
Well, RTE have already pre-bought it, so we'll be going on RTE for Ireland. We only retain the rights for Ireland, and there's a German sales agent has the rights for the rest of the country, or the rest of the world, should I say.
But it's a credit to what you've achieved then if it's been picked up. So that must feel great. I'm sure you had every confidence it would be, but you never know until it is.
Well, I mean, like, we're very lucky because actually it was picked up off the script.
Wow.
And RT came aboard in the script, and sales agent, German sales agent, came aboard from the script. So they obviously could recognise that this was they thought something good to invest in.
Yeah.
And like, you know, so again, and it is very heartwarming that when that does happen, because it's, you know, it's so difficult to make film in Ireland at any level. And there's always so many obstacles, and there's always so many people chasing small, same pot of money that it's a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah, exactly. When you just want to do the artistic, creative side of it, and you have to do the business side of it, and all that kind of stuff. I know. Listen, well, they're very congratulations with everything achieved so far, and I'm sure the audiences will love it. And it's just a good opportunity to talk about it, but also let people know that it will be screened in Letterkenny and Bundoran cinemas from this evening. Thanks for your time, Kieran. Nice to speak to you.
No problem.
All
Thank you.
Take care of yourself. All right. That is Kieran Cree there, and that is Anne. Something you've heard of before?
Yes.
Yeah.
Read up on this. Very much want to see that film. Yeah, I mean, it's a terrible chapter in Irish history, something I remember very well. Yeah, I want to see that, so I'll be going along to see that hopefully in the next few days.
All right, okay. We'll be back with more after these.
The 9 till noon show with Letterkenny Credit Union, now offering mortgages from 40,000 to 600,000 euro with no hidden fees or transaction charges. Letterkenny Credit Union, 9102127.
Shop LK at Brian McCormick Sports and Leisure, Main Street, Letterkenny. New, fresh colours in women's sportswear from Nike and Under Armour. Get that new look with some bright colours. Quarter zips with t-shirts and fitness bottoms. Match it up with some new arrivals in our footwear for women. Brooks, Hoka, and On Running gives you a unique comfort sensation. View our new arrivals. Click on bmcsports.ie for your free delivery.
Get the moss problems in your lawn sorted with Mobacter, the natural product to remove moss from your lawn. Apply Mobacter now and forget. No raking necessary. And Mobacter will not stain your patio areas. Mobacter is the only moss remover approved by the Royal Horticultural Society. Mobacter Lawn Fertiliser for beautiful green, moss-free lawns. From local co-ops and garden stores. Check out mobacter.ie for all Viano products or find us on Facebook.
Our wide range of 2023 Skodas are going fast. This is the sound of the Breen family getting their powerful diesel Kodiaq. And this is fully charged Fiona, driving away in her electric Skoda Enyaq. And this is the sound of someone who didn't place their order in time. Order your 2023 Skoda today, before it's too late. Skoda. Made for Ireland.
Your local Skoda dealer is DMG Motors, Clare Road, Donegal Town. Telephone 074 9721 396 or visit dmgmotors.ie.
If you have an idea to solve one of Ireland's social problems, we want to hear from you. At Social Entrepreneurs Ireland, we support people with ideas that will deliver positive social change. Apply today for training, funding, and support at socialentrepreneurs.ie, and we'll be with you every step of the way. With the right people beside you, anything is possible. Ideas Academy closing date May 16th. Impact Programme closing date May 30th. Visit socialentrepreneurs.ie.
Highland Radio weather updates with Ireland West Airport. Fancy a European city break this summer? Discover the beautiful cities of Barcelona, Cologne and Milan with Ryanair. 6 flights a week for summer 2023. Ireland West Airport. Don't just take off, take it easy.
Okay, let's get a weather forecast from Carlo Weather's Alan O'Reilly. Alan, good morning to you.
Good morning, Greg. How are we doing?
Doing good. Thank you for joining us. Okay, so what good news do you have for us heading into this long weekend for us in the Northwest?
Well, it's a bit of a mixed bag. So there will be sunny spells, but there will also be some showers. Not too many today, hoping it should stay largely dry today. Temperatures a little bit milder, up to 14 or 15 degrees. Tomorrow, temperatures probably getting up to 15 or 16 in the late afternoon, but a lot of showers around, so I'll have the brolly nearby. Sunday, again, showery day, temperatures maybe a little bit back to 14 or 15. Bank holiday Monday, probably the driest of the long bank holiday. And winds going a little northerly, so that'll make it keep a little bit fresh in northwest. Temperatures about 13 or 14, but feeling a bit fresher. So a very mixed bag. Bank holiday Monday, probably the least of the rainfall, but temperatures up a bit on the last few days. Temperatures up to 16 degrees for Tuesday, and Tuesday and Wednesday look dry as well. So if you're making an extra long bank holiday weekend out of it, it looks good. But very uncertain then beyond that, we could see some more rain heading in towards the end of the week.
Is there any point we could sort of start to expect some low 20s settled weather, Alan? Not asking you to forecast it, but just going on trends?
Well, we'd like some heat to finally arrive. I mean, there's been exceptional heat in Spain. They've had the hottest ever day in April with 38.8 degrees recorded in Spain. So it's exceptionally warm down south, but there's no sign of that really edging up towards us. And that easterly wind later in the week could keep us away from the heat yet. So keep the shorts maybe just in the drawer for another little while. But at least we can start getting rid of the big coat maybe, Greg.
Yeah, indeed. And I think I'd take 16 over 38 any day of the week, twice on a Sunday. Thanks, Alan. Take care of yourself.
Cheers. Enjoy your weekend.
You too. Take care. Now you can check out more from Alan on Carlo Weather across social media. I was hoping for good news. It's not bad news. We're all,
You promised me a heat wave at least 2 weeks ago.
I'm not sure.
I mean, I've shorts, t-shirts, bikini, the whole lot, lying out in the spare room, ready to go.
I have a mankini. I can't wait to get that on.
Thanks for that image.
Just think about it. Close your eyes tight.
Thanks for that image.
And just think about it.
It's royal blue.
I'm in.
It's in royal blue.
I'm in. I definitely want to see it.
Dead to Me on Netflix, Michael.
Dead to Me is finished after 3 seasons. This is one of the most acclaimed and popular Netflix comedy dramas. Started in 2019. Christine Applegate, Linda Cardellini. I loved the first season and I loved the second season. Comedy drama, which is really driven by the friendship between these two women. It started off in 2019 when Christine Applegate's character tragically lost her husband in a hit and run incident, and then went to a grief support group. And this other woman aggressively pursued her and became her friend and became her best friend. And there was a big twist very early in that first season. I think the second or third episode, we realised, this is why this strange woman was to be her best friend. But the show evolved quite nicely and you got into season 2. And by the time, no spoilers, but by the time you got into season 2, the two of them were best mates. They were covering up a murder. They were involved in all sorts of crimes and it was great crack. Season 3 came after the pandemic. There was a long gap. And also Christina Applegate in real life is dealing with very serious health issues.
She had breast cancer.
She's had
quite a long time ago, didn't she?
She did, a long time ago. Christina Applegate is one of those great icons of TV because between Married with Children, which ran 11 years, she had a show called Jessie, which ran, I think, 5 years. And then she was on a short-lived but enjoyable series called Samantha Who, which was...
So she had to reinvent herself a bit throughout her career, didn't she?
She did throughout her career. And then her latest chapter was This Is Dead to Me, which has been and continues to be critically acclaimed. The third season is a very different beast. The third season has less of the comedy, and for me it has less of the crime, but it really doubles down on the emotions of the situation and it doubles down on the friendship between these two women. And still to this day, that's something you don't see very much in TV. You don't see a TV series built around female friendships.
No.
There isn't that many shows that just exclusively look at that. But I didn't love this third season as much as I love I finished it during the week. I didn't love it as much as I love the early ones. Critics have embraced it and the audience scores are very high. Again, it's exactly the same. It's 75% from the audience and 84% from the critics on Rotten Tomatoes. The last episode, I thought it was okay, but when I went on IMDb and looked at those ordinary people like Greg who are out there watching it, they were all saying the same thing. Bawled my eyes out. Cried. So it's the sort of show that I think if you're invested in the characters and you're invested in the friendship, you probably will bawl your eyes out at the end. And if that's what you're looking for, nothing wrong with that.
Okay, and sometimes that's life too, isn't it? What health challenges is she currently facing, did you say?
In real life?
Yeah.
MS.
Right, okay.
Yeah, she's dealing with
very unlucky with her
She's
health.
really unlucky, yeah.
And she's a fantastic actress.
Incredibly talented actress,
Okay.
Right, so that's Dead to Me on Netflix. You're going around 7 again, are you?
Yeah, about 7 again. I would give the early seasons.
It's not been a great weak for you in terms of new series of things?
The older stuff, I've been watching older shows like The Streets of San Francisco. I know Fanuna's always amazed that I'm watching old crime shows like that, but I'm enjoying those more than I'm enjoying the new things. Yeah,
this kind of feeds into kind of a trend we're having where we're struggling to come up with new stuff. Not we here, but, us as viewers.
Yeah.
That's why I kind of kept on about that other show. And you put it perfectly. The reason why we're talking about those two shows is because what else has been produced?
What else is
if you compare them, like where's there's a couple of things, genres that I'm kind of like where's the next Game of Thrones? Where is it? Why haven't we received something that's like lost Game of Thrones that everybody's
I know
like
what you mean.
Water cooler TV that everyone's talking about?
Where's it? Which I'm still searching for.
Is the market so diverse now and so splintered?
It is.
Yes.
And everyone says, "Oh, we never had so much choice," but really, to me, quality has dipped.
Yeah.
As in, there's so much stuff out there, but it's really hard to find something that you go, oh my.
Yeah, but you have to imagine, we have to imagine, that there is a group of very talented individuals that write stuff. And then there's a group of very talented individuals that produce it and then make it. And,
yes.
And you've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different organisations pulling at them. You've got ITV trying to get something for ITV, the BBC, the Netflix, Amazon. It's a finite amount of talent, presumably. Yeah. Eventually it has to be exhausted.
The amount of shows that are in production, I mean, it's many factors higher than it would have been a decade ago.
They should just do reboots of shows that we liked.
And just keep
doing them again.
But they are doing them. But that is what they've all done. You know what I mean? You think of a lot of the crime ones. Like I started watching True Lies. They made a TV show out of it. I was like, this is a brilliant premise for a TV show. Why has it never been done before? Then I watched it and I went, oh, right, okay.
That's one of the shows.
Arnold Schwarzenegger film?
Yes, the idea of that.
I mean, everything's so ripped off. Why pay them for
that?
You know,
just do a thing.
But Disney have done that. But
it's borderline. I was reading last night through a list of things that are probably not coming back. That's on the list, and so is a show that you like, Alaska Daily.
No,
it's borderline.
Well, I watched it.
Yeah, okay, well,
I watched it. One
of my favourites is on the list.
She reserves the right to change her mind.
No, I
Big
did
Sky
like it when it
is on the
started
list,
off.
and I love Big Sky.
I thought Alaska Daily could be good.
Yeah,
but then it turns out that
Hilary Swank.
Swank is very annoying.
Do you think some of them, when they put them on lists, it's kite flying to see if there'll be a campaign for it to come back again?
Producers. I absolutely agree with. Producers want, because it shows. There is a debate about this, but some people say you can save a show with social media action. Other people that I follow, like media analysts, say that's bunk and you just can't. Money rules the day. So, but Big Sky is on that list, and I adore Big Sky, and I hope it gets a 4th season because I am very much in love with that woman, and I want to see her solving crimes for another 13 weeks.
And I'm sure she'll do everything she can to make sure that you can see her again.
Yeah.
Right. So, a quick word in the theatre. Then you're going to the theatre on Wednesday.
We went to see the opera, which I have to say I completely misspelt. But when I thought back on it, I was embarrassed until I realised the level of confidence in which I made my error.
Absolutely brilliant.
It was 2 seconds after I pulled your mic, you had it.
Yes. I know.
And it was like, can John Breslin clarify this after the news
that was
12?
it, yeah. And I want to see an Andy Warhol opera.
I know. I was impressed by my level of confidence in my complete.
You just said it, man. You
my
owned
complete delusion. I did own it. But we went to see Werther, and it was absolutely beautiful. And I highly recommend that people do go. I'm not an opera person. This is only the second one I've ever seen, and one of them was a comedy. This one was a tragedy, and both of them were equally amazing just to see. And it's definitely, even if you think it's something outside your wheelhouse, going to Green on to see it is a lovely way to do it. Just to let you know, the Irish Opera Company actually have a exhibition which is like VR. Is that the thing where you put the glasses on? Up in the RCC?
Yes, behind the theatre.
So that's on this weekend. If anybody's walking around past her, they should pop in and see. This Wednesday we're going to see, and I've written it down this time to make sure I say it right, Tartuffe.
Are you happy with that?
It seems it passes muster, yeah.
No, she says things wrong with such confidence.
I thought it was Tuesday. Is it Wednesday?
It's Wednesday. Well, I'll check the tickets.
You're right.
I think it's Wednesday. We're going to see Tartuffe, which we're really looking forward to, and that's going to be amazing. Just purely, I mean, the Abbey are coming down with it. There's a reason why they are the National Theatre.
Oh, yeah.
It's well worth to see it. The Werther thing, even if you didn't like the opera part of it, the scenery and the stage
set was astonishing.
It's just astonishing. So it's just fantastic. Oh, and Guardians of the Galaxy Part 3 is out next week. Look out for it. I am dying for it.
All right, okay. Michael Fanula, thank you so very much indeed. Just to let you know, we mentioned an event on the showfront in Buncrana this Sunday, April 30th. It's at 2 p.m. They changed the time from 3 to 2. That's where we have to leave it on the show. Thank you so much for listening throughout the course of the week. We'll be back with you on Tuesday